Chapter 540. Empryston town was in the southwest corner of the Mirando Duchy, bordering the Rutan Duchy to the south and being surrounded by the Lampari Kingdom to the west and north. There was a wide river that flowed through the center of the town, heading east. This river was called the Sandy River in the Lampari Kingdom, and it was called the Mirando River in the Mirando Duchy. The reason why it was given such a name was because there was only one river in the Mirando Duchy that was more than 50 meters wide and could be considered spacious. Other than this river, Empryston town was no different from the other towns in the Mirando Duchy. It was just as peaceful and normal. Empryston town had existed on this continent for hundreds of years. No matter how much the continent had changed, no one would be interested in such a barren town with no distinguishing features. The people of Empryston town also thought that they would be like the past several hundred years, living this peaceful and normal life until they died. However, in the second half of year 3783, the peace of the town was suddenly broken. First, on a certain day, there were several dozen large boats that came down from the Mirando River. The signs on the boats said that they came from the Lampari Kingdom, but among the men that jumped out of the boats, other than some humans that spoke with the Lampari Kingdom's Bana City accent, there were also some strange and fierce-looking beastmen men. However, what surprised the people of Empryston town was that these beastmen men didn't come to this small town that didn't have any profits to do bad things. After they got off the boats, they actually obediently worked under the orders of the humans. But after observing for a while, the people found that these beastmen weren't like the legendary beastmen slaves. This was because the humans on the boats didn't restrict the beastmen men that much. They treated them like normal humans. There wasn't any difference. After a long time, when the people of the town looked away from the beastmen men in surprise, they found something that surprised them. Without knowing it, by the Mirando River outside the town, there was actually a large pier that had been built. Not far from the pier, there was also a large building that was half the height of the tallest church in the town. Everyone was surprised by this building. They couldn't understand at all why these Lampuri people would suddenly come to their small town to build such a large pier, as well as a building that they didn't know what it was used for. Even though those people had been accompanied by the mayor when they were building the pier and the building, and there would occasionally be an important person who was said to be a count who would come to check on them to prove that they had obtained the approval of the duchy, the townspeople were still extremely uneasy. But this unease didn't last long. Not long after, the people of the town found that these people had brought them many benefits. There were over 100 humans and beastmen that came down from the boats. Although they had brought down a large pile of materials that people couldn't understand, they didn't prepare any food or clothing. So to solve this problem, naturally they had to come to the town. These large men seemed to be very rich, being very generous. They could casually find a restaurant to eat, and they would take out several silver coins, which was several times the price of the ingredients used in the meal. Moreover, other than eating, these large men worked hard and loved to drink good wine at night. Although the wine made by the people of Empryston town couldn't be considered delicious, these large men, especially the beastmen men, didn't reject it and drank it all. Once they were addicted to it, they would even throw out a single gold coin. In just a month or two, the people of the town were surprised to find that because of the arrival of this mysterious fleet, they had received quite a bit of unexpected income. It was a pity that good times didn't last. After they finished building the wharf and the unknown building, these large men left the town. However, the people had only been disappointed for a few days when another group of several hundred burly men, far more than the previous group, came to the small town once again. These large men didn't come from the Mirando River. Rather, they came from the ground in a strange thing called a magic car. After settling down in the town, these large men began pounding the ground around the town. According to what they said, they were preparing to build a road. A road? Empryston town shared a border with the Lampari Kingdom, so they had heard of this thing that was said to be everywhere in the Lampari Kingdom. But why did these people suddenly come here to build a road? But the answer to this question wasn't important to the people of the town. The important thing was that because of the arrival of these people, the food and lodging business in the town became prosperous again. There were even some well-informed merchants who heard that these people were still moving, so they opened a restaurant near the wharf to provide food and lodging for these people. After a few months, there were 3 more roads outside the town. One of them went west, directly reaching the Lampari kingdom. The other one went east, which was said to lead to the capital of the duchy, Mirando City. As for the last one, it was a bit strange that it went south into the kingdom of Roer, but it was unknown where it would lead to. After the road and wharf were built, it was like a large group of people came to the town overnight. A large number of strange-looking iron machines were transported into the strange building that was previously built. Then, the town office suddenly posted a notice, announcing that Chung wanted to recruit a group of workers in town. Seeing the salary on the notice, the door of the strange building was almost broken by the swarm of people. Why do you think? Nonsense. A month's salary was 10 gold coins. Moreover, there was a meal for lunch. There was even an extra reward for every festival. Such a good job. Why wouldn't they rush to grab it? In the end, the new flyer, which came from the Lampari kingdom and seemed to be very famous in the Lampari kingdom, recruited 100 workers from the town and entered the strange building not far from the wharf. Oh no, the rare earth smelting factory. As for the rest who weren't recruited, they didn't have to be too disappointed. According to the new flyer, they would open several magic machine factories here in the future and needed to recruit a large number of workers. According to the slightly plump middle-aged man who came to recruit workers, he could even guarantee that it wouldn't be long before everyone in Ampriston Town had a good job. Not only would they not have to worry about food and clothing in the future, but they could also enjoy a much more comfortable life. No one doubted his words, because the people in the town didn't have the qualifications to be deceived. Now, everyone was looking forward to the end of winter. This was because the vice president of the new flyer said that when spring came and the weather warmed up, it would be convenient to start building the factory. The people of the town could already see countless good jobs waving at them. At this time, naturally no one noticed that every once in a while, the rare earth-smelting factory would send out batches of goods. They would either be loaded onto the boats at the wharf, or they would be loaded onto the large transport magic cars. But in the end, they would head west and enter the Lampari kingdom. While everyone was immersed in their fantasies for tomorrow, there was another boat that came from the Mirando River and stopped at the wharf. At the same time, there was a horse carriage that didn't seem that remarkable that entered the town from the east and stopped at the entrance of the town office. Magician Bucares came out of the horse carriage, and Ampriston Town's Mayor Baron Loffick came out to welcome him. Honorable Bucares, Chairman Sue isn't here yet. Why don't you wait for him first? No need, I'll wait here. Magician Bucares waved his hand. He just stood at the entrance of the town office and looked up at the entrance of the town with an expectant look. This, Your Excellency Bucares, you standing here, is too eye-catching. I think that Chairman Sue won't like this. Baron Loffick reminded him in a small voice. Oh, that's right. Magician Bucares reacted, and after thinking about it, he turned to walk into the town office. Baron Loffick let out a sigh of relief and quickly followed him. Halfway through, Magician Bucares suddenly thought of something. He turned to nod at Baron Loffick and said with a look of praise, Baron Loffick, according to what I saw outside, Ampriston Town has changed quite a bit. I found that the people of the town are much better than before, and it's clear that they have become much richer. When I walk on the road, I can smell the enticing smell of meat. Baron Loffick laughed heartily. That is indeed the case. Ampriston is much stronger than before. But this is all thanks to you, Magician Bucares. If you didn't lead the new flyer here, our town would never have become like this. Then you should thank the new flyer and Chairman Sue. Why thank me? Magician Bucares waved his hand. After pausing for a bit, he suddenly said in a low voice, But I've heard. Baron Loffick, in the past half a year, you've made many unreasonable requests to the Frestac Chamber of Commerce. You've even bribed the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's local manager 5 times. Baron Loffick's expression changed greatly. He then shook his head calmly. How could that be? The Grand Duke and Lord Count Printon have told me countless times to satisfy the new flyer's requests. Why would I make things difficult for them? Is that so? But Lord Count Printon personally mentioned this to me before I left. I hope he didn't listen to rumors." Magician Bucares said faintly. Baron Loffic's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by a long laugh from the door. "Lord Count Printon must have made a mistake somewhere. Our company has always had a good cooperation with Sir Baron. How could something like this happen?" Baron Loffic instantly felt as if he had drunk a bowl of hot soup in the middle of winter. He turned to look at Sue E, who was striding in from the door, and greeted him with gratitude. Chapter 541. Looking at Baron Lofeller, Sue E had a faint smile on his face. In fact, Mage Bucharest was right. In the past 6 months, Baron Lofeller did have all sorts of reasons to feel bad about New Flyer's investment here. He even blatantly asked for bribes from the person in charge of New Flyer, which left a very bad impression on Sue E. But this guy had a good point. As long as his greed was satisfied, no matter what New Flyer wanted to do, he would do his best to support it. New Flyer was able to complete the project in this small town in half a year, so he could be considered to have contributed quite a bit. If there was a new mayor, both sides would have to adjust to each other again. Baron Lofeller might not be as useful as the current one. Moreover, although he frequently asked for bribes, his appetite was actually quite small. So far, half a year had passed, and the value of everything New Flyer had invested in him did not exceed 5,000 gold coins. For a mayor who held such an important position in a small town, this price could be said to be very cheap. If every person with real power like him in the Mirando Duchy could be so easily satisfied, then Sue E would be quite happy. "Baron Lofeller, it's nice to see you again. When Phil went back to report last month, he praised you greatly in front of me. He said that with your help, the work of our rare earth smelting factory was very smooth. He said that it was very reassuring to work with you." Sue E said with a smile. Baron Lofeller obviously knew what Sue E meant. He quickly put on a face full of smiles and shook Sue Yi's hand tightly. He said with great enthusiasm, "Thank you for Factory Manager Phil's affirmation of my work. It is our honor that New Flyer is able to invest in our Amperston town. As the mayor, I am very happy with the changes your company has brought to our town. Of course, I will help you with your work." Sue E laughed. "Our company's motto is to lead a place to become rich when we invest. I mentioned this to Duke Mirando when I discussed this with Sir Bucharest, and I personally made this promise to Duke Mirando. But based on the current situation, we are far from reaching our goal." "How so? How so?" "Our town has already changed quite a bit. Sir Bucharest was just praising this." Baron Lofeller turned to look at Magician Bucharest with a trace of expectation in his eyes. Magician Bucharest narrowed his eyes to look at Baron Lofeller before giving a soft snort. He then turned to Sue E with a smile and a nod. "Yes, Chairman Sue. Since the last time I came here, it has only been less than 2 months. But in such a short time, Amperston Town has undergone a huge change. I can't help but be amazed by the power of your Chamber of Commerce." Sue Yi's words, "This isn't anything." I said, "This is just the beginning. This is..." "Your Excellency Bucares, you've been to Banta City before, so you should know what Banta City has become. My goal is to turn Amperston Town into the next Banta City." Magician Bucharest immediately shook his head. "How can this place compare to Banta City? To me, Banta City's prosperity can even compare to the largest cities of the Canla Empire and the Malar Empire. There are even many strange things in Banta City that no other place on the continent has. Amperston Town is just a normal town in our Mirando Duchy. How could it compare?" Baron Lofeller on the side also said in an emotional voice, "That's right, I went to Banta City to take a look before, and it really left me with many surprises. The current Banta City, in my opinion, has already surpassed all the other cities on the continent by an era." Sue E looked at Baron Lofeller in surprise. This fellow who didn't know anything and only knew how to make money, in Phil's words, could actually say that Banta City surpassed all the other cities on the continent by an era. It seemed like he wasn't completely useless. "But, Chairman Sue, to be honest, I've been to Banta City several times before, and the current Banta City is clearly much worse compared to before. After your New Flyer left Banta City, Banta City's prosperity dropped quite a bit. Magician Bucharest said with knit brows. I really don't understand what your Lampari kingdom is thinking, actually forcing your new flyer away. This is simply stupid to the extreme. Hearing Magician Bucharest in polite evaluation, Sui revealed a smile before shaking his head. That is their decision. I won't comment. All right, Your Excellency Bucharest, let's not discuss these unpleasant things and talk about proper business. Magician Bucharest nodded before looking at Baron Lofeller. Baron Lofeller immediately understood and said to the two of them with a smile, I'll go take a look at the situation on the road. You can slowly chat. When Baron Lofeller left and closed the door, Magician Bucharest took out a piece of paper for Sue. Chairman Sue, this is the result of my research with several high-grade magicians. Please take a look and give me some suggestions. Sue wasn't polite and opened it to take a look. He found that it was a blueprint, and there was a complicated magic array drawn on it. There were also many diagrams and detailed explanations of this magic array on the side. When Sui finished looking over the blueprint and thought about it, Magician Bucharest asked with an expectant look, How is it? Chairman Sue, what do you think about the wind array that accelerates the magic airship? There isn't a problem with the general idea, and there isn't a big problem with the magic array itself. But, Magician Bucharest immediately became nervous. But you've neglected a problem. You've only considered the problem of the magic array when a magic airship takes off, but you've neglected the mechanical aspect. Although this idea is correct, if the magic airship has enough power when it takes off, it can fly faster and more smoothly, but you have to consider the mechanical aspect of the magic airship itself. If you set up this magic array, the lifespan of the magic airship will be greatly reduced. Sui said, Is that so? Magician Bucharest looked at the blueprint and lowered his head to think for a bit, but he was still a bit confused. Chairman Sue, to be honest, we don't know much about machines, so we don't understand the situation you're talking about. But Chairman Sue, you're an expert in this field, so since you've said this, it should be like this. It seems like we were careless when designing it. Seeing the ashamed expression on Magician Bucharest's face, Sui smiled and said, This is nothing. No one knows everything when they're born. If you come into contact with more knowledge about magic machines in the future, you'll naturally be able to consider it more thoroughly. Also, I'll take this blueprint back with me. There are actually quite a few good points on it. If I give it to Evita, it should be of help to her research. Please don't be stingy with your guidance. Magician Bucharest handed the blueprint back to Sui, paused, and said hesitantly, Chairman Sue, if we can't grasp this mechanical knowledge, is it impossible to build a joint venture factory? That won't be the case. Sui shook his head. There are many ways to build a joint venture factory. If you're willing, we can temporarily provide the technology. The rest of the space, personnel, and other specific materials will be prepared by you. We'll only use the technology to invest and participate in the dividends. Then wouldn't we not have the qualifications to come into contact with this technology? Magician Bucharest asked with a frown. Sui gave a sigh in his heart. The Mirando Duchy really was a small and weak duchy. When it came to transferring technology, those fellows from the Lampari Kingdom all aimed at the new flyer's technology and requested the new flyer to transfer the technology. Magician Bucharest was one of the top magicians in the Mirando Duchy, but he was very careful when discussing this with Sui. But this was what Sui wanted. If the Mirando Duchy acted as strong as the Lampari Kingdom, he wouldn't consider a deeper cooperation. Relax, for some household magic machine-related technology, our company already has experience in transferring it. If nothing unexpected happens, in just around a year, you'll be able to grasp the technology. When the time comes, you'll have the ability to produce your own household magic machines, and you won't need to consider a joint venture with our company. Sui patiently explained. Magician Bucharest nodded, but he was still a bit confused. Chairman Sue, I don't understand. If you look at it from the perspective of your new flyer, it's clear that it's better for you to keep the technology and cooperate with us. If you really transfer all the technology to us, we indeed don't need to cooperate with you at all. Wouldn't this be very disadvantageous for you? Sui shook his head with a faint smile. If you understood the things our new flyer has done over the years, you wouldn't have asked this question. It's hard for me to explain the specifics to you, so just treat it as me being willful. Magician Bucharest tightly knit his brows as he looked at Sue-E, clearly not understanding it all. But Sue-E clearly wasn't planning on explaining this to him, so he didn't keep asking. He went through his bag and took out a document for Sue-E. Chairman Sue, this is the contract for the rare earth mine and magic crystal mine that the Duke signed for you. Please take a look. Chapter 542. Seeing Sue-E focused on reading the contract, not letting a single word go, Magician Bucharest's heart was filled with doubt. Even if he had known Sue-E for a year, and since they started working together, he had met Sue-E countless times, but the more they met, the more he found that he couldn't understand Sue-E at all. For example, in this contract, Duke Mirando represented the Mirando Duchy in transferring the rights to a rare earth mine and a magic crystal mine to New Flyer. New Flyer agreed to transfer some household magic machine production technology to the Mirando Duchy, as well as establishing a joint venture with the Mirando Duchy to help the Mirando Duchy build 5 magic machine factories in their duchy. Whether it was from Magician Bucharest's point of view or from Duke Mirando's point of view, this was a very beneficial deal for the Mirando Duchy. Because the rare earth, ores, and elements that Sue-E mentioned, there wasn't a single person in the Mirando Duchy who knew what they were used for. Using this kind of useless thing to exchange for anything, it was considered a profit for the Mirando Duchy, not to mention exchanging for the important household magic machine technology. For Duke Mirando, the most important thing was the joint venture between them. According to the results of the investigation of Bana City, the Mirando Duchy had already reached a consensus. It was that the household magic machines led by New Flyer had great prospects and could create many jobs. If they could build a joint venture with New Flyer, the Mirando Duchy would have 5 more household magic machine factories. For the Mirando Duchy, that was only 3 to 4 times the size of Bana City. There was no doubt it would be a great help. As for the other magic crystal mine, although it seemed more valuable than the rare earth ores, magic crystals were all over the signs and could be found all over the Mirando Duchy, so they weren't worth anything at all. Even if the magic crystal mine that New Flyer valued was the largest in the Mirando Duchy, according to its valuation, it wouldn't even be worth 100,000 gold coins. As for any household magic machine production technology that New Flyer transferred, the transfer fee would easily surpass 100,000 gold coins. Not to mention that Sue-E had taken the initiative to build the rare earth smelting factory and the magic crystal refining factory in the Mirando Duchy, as well as hiring a certain amount of workers from the Mirando Duchy. Just these 2 factories alone were enough to bring great benefits to the Mirando Duchy. For example, the rare earth smelting factory outside Empresston Town had only been open for less than 2 months, but it had already paid 3,000 gold coins in taxes to Empresston Town and recruited 100 local workers. Not mentioning the benefits, just the wages of the workers' wages per month alone reached 10 gold coins a month. This kind of salary was second to none in the entire Mirando Duchy. So the local workers who could enter the rare earth smelting factory, they were all envied by others. The people of Empresston Town were all proud to be able to work in the New Flyer's rare earth smelting factory. When they heard that New Flyer was about to open a canned seafood factory and fertilizer factory outside the town and needed to recruit around 200 workers, not to mention the people of Empresston Town rubbing their hands and preparing to apply, even the people of the nearby towns and cities had already made their preparations. Once the Frestec Chamber of Commerce made it clear when they were recruiting workers, they would be crushed by the crowd that would swarm them. It had to be said, Sue-E had indeed fulfilled his promise, bringing prosperity and development to Empresston Town. This made Magician Bucharest very satisfied with him. However, it was also because of this that Magician Bucharest was filled with doubt towards Sue-E. In his opinion, New Flyer's current approach had actually increased their costs by a lot, and Sue-E definitely had many ways to reduce these costs. For example, even if he offered the workers of Empresston Town a salary of 5 gold coins a month, Bucharest was sure that the people of the town would rush to recruit them. However, Sue did so and even made a lot of promises to Duke Mirando. In the beginning, Magician Bucares didn't believe Sue promises at all because he felt that the promises of merchants couldn't be relied on. However, everything that Sue and New Flyer had done in the past half a year proved that Sue was fulfilling his promises one by one. Thinking back to the many interactions he had with Sue in the past half a year, as well as the various changes that had happened in Ampriston Town, Bucares sighed in his heart. To be able to meet Sue during the Sorcerer's Guild's certification exam was an extremely fortunate thing. Thinking about the Sorcerer's Guild's certification exam, Bucares' heart suddenly moved as he thought of something. Right, Chairman Sue, your current strength. What level have you reached? Bucares couldn't help but ask. Sue had just finished reading the agreement and was thinking about some of the details when he suddenly heard this question. He couldn't help but be stunned for a moment before muttering, "This. I haven't specifically tested it, but I shouldn't be at the level of a great mage yet." "Oh, that's good." Bucares sighed in relief. Sue couldn't help but laugh. "What's good about it?" Bucares was stunned for a moment before he reacted and hurriedly waved his hands. No, Chairman Sue, don't misunderstand. I just feel that if you could become a great mage at your age, that would be too terrifying. But thinking of your shocking talent for magic, I feel that it isn't impossible." Sue laughed. "Relax, I'm not that strong. Although I have the strength of a 9th level mage, Great Magician Camilla said that I'm still very far from becoming a great mage. If I want to become a great mage, I need to put in a lot of effort." Bucares nodded. His Excellency, Great Magician Camilla, is right. Although a 9th level mage is only a step away from becoming a great mage, this step is very hard to take. Chairman Sue, if you want to become a great mage, you need to put in a lot of effort. But Chairman Sue, you're busy with a New Flyer all day. I'm afraid you don't have much time to practice magic, right? Indeed, I don't have much time. Sue shrugged and helplessly said with a sigh, "You also know that our company has encountered many things this year. I've only rested for 2 days in the Principality of Constantine this year and have been busy the rest of the time. How could I have time to study magic?" Bucares let out a sigh of surprise. "Even if it's like this, Chairman Sue, you still have the strength of a 9th level mage. It has to be said, Chairman Sue, your talent for magic is just too shocking. I feel that Great Magician Camilla is right. You should take out more time to study magic and try to become a great mage as soon as possible. I think you should understand that once you become a great mage, your status and realm will be completely different." "Of course I understand this. Don't forget, our New Flyer has 2 great mage-level researchers. I'm often with them, so of course I know the large gap between us." Sue said with a sigh, "But I have no other choice. Compared to the level of magic, I pay more attention to the development of the company. In the end, I'm just a single person and my time is limited, so I can't take care of both sides." Bucares slightly knit his brows and said with a serious expression, "Chairman Sue, I still feel that it's better for you to focus on magic first. I feel that you don't really understand the meaning of a great mage. Let's put it this way. If you were a great mage, I think that no matter what the Lampari Kingdom does to you, they would have a lot of concerns. The matter that your New Flyer encountered in the Lampari Kingdom before, I think that it would have a different result." "Really?" Sue was a bit confused. "Don't forget, Great Magician Camilla is firmly on my side. When the kingdom deals with our company, I don't feel any scruples. This Great Magician Camilla is Great Magician Camilla. It's not the same as you being a great mage." Bucares said, "Of course, I don't understand the actions of your Lampari Kingdom. If your New Flyer was a company of our Mirando Duchy, I can guarantee that Duke Mirando would fully support you and the New Flyer and wouldn't do such an excessive thing. Let bygones be bygones. Don't mention it again." Sue revealed a faint smile and shook the agreement in his hand. "I've already looked through this agreement and there aren't any problems. Please go back and tell Duke Mirando that I represent the New Flyer in agreeing to the terms of this agreement." After saying this, Sue took out a pen and his personal seal from his chest and signed his name on the agreement before stamping it. Seeing that Sue didn't respond to his words, Bucares was a bit disappointed, but seeing that Sue didn't have any problems signing the agreement, he immediately became happy again. Although the two sides had been working together for half a year, this was the first time that Sue had personally come to sign the agreement. It was very symbolic and meant that the cooperation between the two sides had reached a deeper level. Of course, Sue didn't come this time just to sign this agreement. After Sue took the agreement and confirmed it, Bucher said to Sue with a smile, "Chairman Sue, according to the news that Mr. Newman sent a few days ago, if nothing unexpected happens, he should arrive tomorrow or the day after. I ask you to patiently wait here for 2 days." "No problem." Sue nodded with a faint smile. After all, this is a large matter that concerns our three sides, so waiting for 2 days isn't much. Chapter 543. On the last day of year 3783 of the continent's new calendar, the Banta Times had a rather conspicuous piece of news on the second page. The New Flyer, the Mirando Duchy, and the Rudsun Duchy have signed a three-way long-term cooperation agreement. According to this agreement, the New Flyer will provide technical support to the Mirando Duchy and the Kingdom of Ruhr, building several household magic machine factories in the two countries. As for the Mirando Duchy and the Kingdom of Ruhr, they will open up their mineral resources to the New Flyer. Although there were many people who noticed this news when they saw the Banta Times, overall, this news didn't create that much of a stir in Banta City. In the end, the New Flyer had already been banned by the Magic Machine Industry Management Department and hadn't been able to produce magic machines in the Lampari Kingdom for half a year. Then, because of the new rules of the business department, the New Flyer had greatly reduced the number of magic machines it sold in the Lampari Kingdom. For the people of the Lampari Kingdom and even Banta City, the New Flyer had disappeared from their world for half a year. Although the New Flyer service centers in the various cities of the kingdom were still working, and there was still a research facility and a canned fruit factory in Banta City, in most people's lives, the only things the New Flyer had left were the household magic machines they had bought before. People were forgetful, and after half a year, most people in the Lampari Kingdom had gradually forgotten about this company that had led countless trends in the kingdom. Perhaps only in Banta City would there be many people who would think of it and have a bit of nostalgia for the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. The First and Carriage Company's chairman Pompey was perhaps one of the people who missed the New Flyer the most right now. Although he was very dissatisfied with the city lore manor forcing him to buy the Lefay Chamber of Commerce's magic cars for public transport, he could still profit from Banta City's public transport system. Moreover, maintaining the public transport system would greatly increase the reputation of the First and Carriage Company. So after careful consideration, Chairman Pompey didn't choose to give up in the end. He followed the rules of the City Lord Manor and switched to the Lefay Chamber of Commerce's magic cars. However, it had been less than 4 months since all the buses had been replaced. After President Pompey did a detailed calculation, he found that not only did he not earn any money from the city's public transport system, but he had also lost more than 50,000 gold coins on net. Before this, although the First and Carriage Company followed Her Highness 70's wishes and Su Yi's advice and set a low price for public transport, they could still make a profit. Even though the profits weren't much, he still earned about 10 to 20,000 gold coins a month. Now that there was a sudden loss, and it wasn't a small loss, after the First and Carriage Company calculated it, they found that the reason for this was because of the quality of the Lefay brand magic cars. Just last month, the First and Carriage Company's 374 Lefay brand magic cars had suffered a total of 176 small and large damages. They had spent an extra 23,625 gold coins to repair them. Because of this high frequency of damages, the entire Banta City public transport system was greatly affected, and there were times where they had to be changed. The First and Carriage Company had to pay at least 3,000 gold coins in operating costs. Other than that, the damages varied in severity. Some of the more serious ones even caused a few serious accidents. The most serious one was when a Lefay brand magic car heading to the new Southern District suddenly went out of control and crashed into a shop on the side of the street. Although it wasn't fast and no one died, there were 13 people who were heavily injured and 24 people who were lightly injured. Because of this, the First and Carriage Company had to pay over 5,000 gold coins in medical and compensation fees. Adding it all together, just last month, the First and Carriage Company had spent close to 40,000 gold coins on the public transport system. Putting aside the profits, their net loss was over 20,000 gold coins. It was like this for several months. So Chairman Pompey felt that the public transport system was simply a burden for the First and Carriage Company. But maintaining the public transport system not only increased the reputation of the First and Carriage Company in Bandit City, it also gave him a certain amount of support from the City Lord Manor. So even though they were clearly losing money, Chairman Pompey never made up his mind to give up and kept doing his best to maintain it. However, the City Lord Manor had made a new rule a few days ago that forced him to make his decision. The First and Carriage Company couldn't keep maintaining the public transport system. The content of this rule was very simple. It was to announce that starting tomorrow, the special subsidies that Banta City's finances gave to the public transport system would be canceled. The reason given by the City Lord Manor was very righteous, saying that this was to promote a fair business environment in Banta City, so they couldn't give special subsidies to certain companies. But how could Chairman Pompey not know that this was completely because the City Lord Manor wasn't willing to take out money? The reason why this rule wasn't changed this year was because the subsidies for the public transport system had already been given by Her Highness 70 when she was still the City Lord at the beginning of the year. If they changed it this year, it would without a doubt be a great disrespect to Her Highness 70. In the new year, it was natural for the City Lord's Manor to change some policies. Even Her Highness 70 couldn't blame them. It was very clear that Chairman Pompey didn't have the right to criticize the City Lord Manor, so he could only silently accept it. After several days of careful calculation, Chairman Pompey realized that if they lost the special subsidies from the City Lord Manor, the First and Carriage Company would lose over 200,000 gold coins a year just from the public transport system. It would even be close to 300,000 gold coins. If it was 2 years ago when the First and Carriage Company had a profit of over 1 million gold coins a year for their reputation and the support of the City Lord Manor, they could barely take this loss. But now the City Lord's Manor clearly didn't support the First and Carriage Company. Moreover, because the 10 companies had lowered the transport fees, the First and Carriage Company's profits had greatly decreased. At the end of the year, their annual profits didn't even exceed 500,000 gold coins. Not to mention that this profit included the high profit from the first half of the year. If they only counted the second half of the year, their total profit was only less than 200,000 gold coins. In this situation, the First and Carriage Company couldn't take the large loss from the public transport system at all. Helplessly, even if Chairman Pompey didn't want to disappoint Her Highness 70 and Chairman Sue, he had to give up. So when the Banta Times published news on the last day of year 3783 of the continent's new calendar, as long as it was related to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce would be on the front page, but now it had to be on the second page. Because the front page news was an explosive piece of news from the First and Carriage Company through the Banta Times. The First and Carriage Company announced that starting next year, the First and Carriage Company would be withdrawing from Banta City's public transport system. In just a single morning, this news had spread all over Banta City. Everyone who received this news was stunned. The First and Carriage Company withdrawing from the public transport system. Didn't that mean that there would be no public transport magic cars in the future? But the people of Banta City were already used to taking the convenient magic cars to wherever they wanted to go. Now that it was suddenly gone, what would they do if they wanted to go out in the future? It wasn't a problem for rich people since most of them had bought magic sedans from the New Flyer. But what about the people who couldn't afford magic sedans? Could it be that they had to rely on riding bicycles? The people of Banta City had been used to the public transport system for close to 2 years. Now that it was suddenly gone, everyone was a bit stunned. After being stunned, many people became angry again. The First and Carriage Company had taken over Banta City's public transport system with the support of Her Highness 70 and Chairman Sue. Now that they had earned enough money, they actually wanted to withdraw while Her Highness 70 and Chairman Sue were leaving Banta City. What did they treat the people of Banta City as? But after calming down, people thought of a very important question. Why did the first and carriage company withdraw from the public transport system? For merchants, of course, earning money was the most important thing. If running the public transport system could earn money, even if someone held a knife to Chairman Pompey's neck, he wouldn't announce his withdrawal. Because of this question, people began reading the report on this matter in the Banta Times. Although the Banta Times didn't describe this matter in detail, there were two key points. One was that the City Lord Manor had canceled the special subsidies for the public transport system, and the second was that the Lafayette Chamber of Commerce had a monopoly on the public transport magic cars. As long as people saw these two key points and thought about it, they could understand the problem. It was clear that the City Lord's Manor was protecting the 10 companies of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department, as well as squeezing the first and carriage company that had a close relationship with the Frestac Chamber of Commerce. Thinking of the things the City Lord Manor did to the Sheenfay Chamber of Commerce in the second half of the year, as well as the actions of the 10 companies, comparing it to when Her Highness 70 was the City Lord and when the New Flyer was still in Banda City, the people of Banda City were filled with even stronger resentment. On the last day of year 3873 of the continent's new calendar, Banta City seemed calm on the surface. But on the day of the new year, there wasn't a happy atmosphere in Banta City. Rather, under the calm surface, there was an undercurrent. Chapter 544. Her Highness 70's territory was in the Lampari Kingdom's northeast province, which was close to the eastern border of the kingdom. It was around 700 kilometers away from Banda City. Being this far, and adding in the fact that 70 wanted to show her attitude, she didn't ask about matters outside her territory, so naturally she didn't know anything about what happened in Banda City. However, on the first day of year 3784, 70's mood was the same as the people of Banda City. It wasn't that good. Since about half a month before the new year, there had been a continuous influx of refugees from the west and northwest into her private territory. In the beginning, seeing these ragged and skinny refugees who were clearly poor, 70 had her subordinates take care of them. But as time passed, there were more and more refugees that came to her territory. Today, a rough count showed that in this half a month, the number of Nanming people who had entered the territory had exceeded 200. This made 70 very surprised. In the past few years, with the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's agricultural magic machines being promoted in the Lampuri Kingdom, the grain yield of the kingdom had greatly increased. And because of the use of fertilizer, the kingdom's grain yield was enough to satisfy the needs of everyone in the kingdom. There was even excess grain that could be sold to the neighboring countries. Properly speaking, even if there was a natural disaster, the kingdom should have enough grain and there shouldn't be refugees. Not to mention that the Lampari Kingdom had good weather this year. There weren't any natural disasters at all. But the refugees in front of her were hard facts. So 70 was very confused. After praying to the dead Lampuri 13th on the first day of the new year, 70 thought of her royal father's advice and couldn't help coming to the refugee shelter in her territory to ask a few refugees. After a simple question, 70 received an answer that she didn't expect at all. These refugees weren't running away because they didn't have food to eat. Rather, they were running away from military service. Service? 70 slightly knit her brows. 70 knit her brows. Other than compulsory military service in the kingdom, there's never been any compulsory military service. What are you running away from? No. Your Highness, you misunderstand. It was a middle-aged man who had escaped from the Northwest Province. He shook his head and said, "We're not trying to escape the kingdom's military service. We're doing it because of the military service set by the local lord and the city lord." 70 was surprised. Service set by the lord and the city lord's manor? What do they make you serve for? They want us to work in the factory. If we don't do it, they won't give us crops or food to eat. The middle-aged man sighed. But if you work in the factory, you have to go every day at dawn and come back when it's dark. It's like this every day. I persevered for a few months and couldn't stand it all. Yes, it's the same for us. Sometimes they would make us work all night, and then they would only let us go back to sleep for a few hours before we had to work again. 2 people in our village died of exhaustion last month. A skinny man with sunken eyes who seemed to be young, but looked like he was in his 30s or 40s agreed. Right, right. Many people died of exhaustion on our side. We were afraid that we would die of exhaustion, so we found a chance to escape. This time it was a middle-aged woman who agreed. Our family ran together this time. Otherwise, if we stayed, we would have been caught. If we kept working, our entire family would have died of exhaustion. Seeing the haggard faces of the refugees agree, 70 was very surprised. What work did they catch you to do? You're actually this tired? It's just some work in the factory. It seems to be some kind of magic machine, right? Right, it's a magic machine. That damn magic machine. I dream of it every night when I have nightmares. The one I made before was called the magic kettle. It seems to be like this. It's just a simple thing, and it's not hard to make, but to work all day, I really can't take it. Oh, we're making the magic air conditioner. We're making the magic stove. Hearing the discussions of the refugees, 70's expression became a bit strange. If she didn't hear wrong, these refugees had been forced to work by the nobles and the city lord manor, but they were actually making magic machines in the magic machine factory. But in 70's impression, wasn't the work of a magic machine factory very simple? Wasn't it much easier than farming? Your Highness, that's because you haven't done it before. Let me tell you, the work is indeed very simple. But to do the same thing all day long, doing it over 10,000 times, no one can take it. Moreover, you can only rest when you eat. You can't stop at any other time. A refugee explained to 70. 70 asked back in a surprised voice, "It can't be, right? Could it be that you only work 8 hours a day? Shouldn't you be paid overtime for the extra hours?" Overtime pay? This time, it was the refugees' turn to be stunned. What's overtime pay? 70 was speechless. It seemed like these refugees didn't have the concept of overtime at all. What about salary? You work this long each day. You should be paid quite a bit, right? Is there 20 a month? Oh no, that's not possible. Is there 10 gold coins? 10 gold coins? The refugees all looked at 70 with wide eyes, like they had heard something unbelievable. Seeing their expressions, 70 immediately knew that she had said something wrong. Perhaps for Bana City, 10 gold coins a month wasn't even enough, but for the other places in the Lampari Kingdom, this was already a very high wage. Your Highness, to you 10 gold coins isn't much, but we had never seen 10 gold coins before. A refugee couldn't help saying, "That's right. I've only seen gold coins once in my life, and it was someone from our village who came back from working in Bana City to show it to me. He said that he could earn 13 gold coins a month working in Bana City." That high? Then why didn't you go to Bana City? I was planning on going, but my parents were old and I didn't dare go too far. What about now? I remember you saying that your parents were beaten to death by the Lord, so you don't have this burden anymore, right? The young man who spoke had a sad look on his face. He lowered his head and said with a sigh, "I can't go even if I want to now." That person from our village said that after the new flyer left Bana City was completely controlled by those 10 companies. If I ran over, I would be caught and sent back to where I came from. After saying this, the young man suddenly looked up and begged 70, "Your Highness, please pity us and don't send us back. If we go back, I will be beaten to death by the Lord sooner or later." 70 was surprised. Before she could reply, the other refugees seemed to have reacted and began begging 70. "Your Highness, I've heard that you are the most benevolent. Please forgive us for escaping from our territory. We just want to live a few more days." "That's right, Your Highness. We didn't really want to escape. We just didn't want to die from exhaustion. Your Highness, please forgive us." Looking over the faces filled with hope, 70 gave a sigh. She stood up and ordered the managers to take care of these refugees before leaving the temporary shelter. The refugees behind her were still begging, but she could only harden her heart and ignore them. It wasn't that she wasn't willing to accept the requests of these refugees, but based on the answers of these refugees, they were clearly citizens of the private territory of the kingdom's nobles. According to the rules of the royal parliament, even if she was the princess, she didn't have the right to meddle in the territories of other nobles. These refugees were the citizens of nobles, so how they were dealt with was up to the lords. Although she could temporarily take them in, she didn't have the right to deal with them. The only thing she could do was to temporarily settle them down and pretend that she didn't know about this matter, hiding it for a while. If the lords of these refugees came to her, according to the rules of the royal parliament and the unwritten rules of the nobles, 70 couldn't force them to stay. Walking on a road that wasn't that wide in her territory, 70 thought about the conversation she had with the refugees, and her heart was filled with bitterness. She thought that solving the food problem of the kingdom would improve the lives of the kingdom's citizens. But she never thought that the kingdom's citizens would suffer this kind of hardship. Although she didn't ask clearly, based on the reactions of the refugees, when they were forced to work in the magic machine factories, not to mention over time, they might not even receive a wage. This was because they called this service, and service was naturally voluntary work. Thinking of this, 70 couldn't help giving a bitter laugh. When she saw Sue E personally set the working standard for the new flyer workers, she had been shocked, feeling that Sue E was doing something unnecessary. This was because she felt that since the workers were employed by New Flyer, they should work according to the New Flyer's arrangements. There was no need to make all these rules for them to follow, as well as limiting their working hours, making it seem so rigid. When Sue E evaluated this, saying that 70's idea represented the nobles oppressing the commoners, 70 wasn't convinced. Looking at it now, Sue Yi's words weren't wrong at all. The experiences of these refugees really perfectly reflected this. Thinking of how the work of these refugees was related to magic machines, 70's heart was filled with emotions. Although this meant that the magic machine industry was developing in the Lampari Kingdom, this wasn't the kind of development that Sue E wanted to see, right? Thinking of this, 70 suddenly felt a strong sense of resentment towards Sue E. This fellow who heartlessly abandoned the Lampari Kingdom and Bana City. What was he doing on the first day of the new year? How much did he know about the current situation in the Lampari Kingdom? Chapter 545. If Sue E knew that 70 was complaining in her heart about him abandoning the Lampari Kingdom and Bana City, he would have shouted that he was wronged. Because half a month before New Year's, he had already brought his family back to the Falling Star Manor in Bana City. Moreover, just yesterday he had attended the New Year's banquet at the City Lord Manor and had a friendly conversation with City Lord Kamadou. He had also drunk some wine with his old friends in Banta City after the banquet. So when he woke up on the morning of the first day of New Year's, his head still hurt from the hangover. But the headache didn't affect his plan. According to his plan, he visited a bunch of people on the first day of New Year's. Not only did it include the New Flyers' old partners in Banta City, it also included City Lord Kamadou and the representatives of the 10 companies. Although both sides had already broken off, the New Flyers still had some facilities in Bana City and was still a company in name, so they still had to maintain basic etiquette on the surface. As for City Lord Kamadou and the 10 companies, their thoughts were the same as Sue Yi's. Even if they weren't polite to Sue E and the New Flyer, when Sue E took the initiative to come, they were still polite and didn't show any disrespect. Although the etiquette between both sides was easy to understand, Chairman Cruz was very impatient. This was because he came to the Falling Star Manor early in the morning to greet Sue E, but he never thought that Sue E would spend half the morning visiting City Lord Kamadou and the representatives of the 10 companies. When he waited for Sue E at the Falling Star Manor, it was already close to noon. I say, Sue E, those fellows have already done this to your New Flyer, so why are you still so polite with them? Chairman Cruz looked at Sue E, who had come back with a happy expression and didn't seem unhappy at all. He asked with a frown, "Could it be that you're hoping that they'll change their attitude?" "Of course not." Sue E smiled and shook his head. "This is just a normal courtesy exchange. Moreover, I'm not giving them face. Rather, I'm giving Banta City face. The face of Banta City." Chairman Cruz gave a cold snort. "The face of Banta City has been lost by them." "Oh? What do you mean?" Sue E sat down on the sofa in the living room and looked at President Cruz in surprise. Sue E shook his head. "Our Banta City has been without a doubt #1 around here, right? It was even comparable to Anvil Mars City. But look at this year. Those fellows have turned Banta City into a mess. Not to mention Anvil Mars City, Even the surrounding Karma City and Southan City aren't that much better. Chairman Cruz said with an angry look. That can't be right. Sue, he said in surprise. Bana City has developed this well in the past few years. So even if it has been ruined by them, it should still be better than the other cities, right? Humph, it is indeed a bit stronger now, but that might not be the case in a year or two. Chairman Cruz said with a snort. Other than those 10 companies, the other companies are all planning to move out. Tell me, Banta City has become this prosperous because of the development of our companies. Of course, the one that played the biggest role was your new flyer. Now that those fellows have chased your new flyer away, our other companies have been forced to a dead end by them. What future does Banta City have? Almost dead end? So he knit his brows. Is it that exaggerated? Of course. Chairman Cruz raised his voice. Chairman Cruz raised his voice. Do you know that the City Lord's Manor made some bullshit rules recently? Oh, what? Is it related to your Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce? Of course it's related. The City Lord's Manor actually gave us a notice, saying that paving roads and building houses involves taking over the kingdom's land. So we need to accept the management of the kingdom's parliament. The companies that engage in these two businesses must accept the management of the City Lord's Manor. According to the City Lord's Manor's decision, no matter where our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce paves roads or builds houses, we must first report to the City Lord's Manor and then complete it under the supervision of the City Lord's Manor. Sui thought about it and felt that there wasn't a problem with this rule. Because land was a limited resource, and because of the existence of the nobles, there wasn't much land left for the kingdom's parliament to control, so it was necessary for the kingdom's parliament to strictly manage this land. Bullshit. Chairman Cruz angrily waved his hand. If they're considering this, I don't have any objections, and it doesn't matter if they pay a bit of money. But the City Lord's Manor has appointed the Maya Chamber of Commerce to be in charge of evaluating land use. So they're clearly targeting our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Do you know what this company is for? Isn't it to evaluate your Chamber of Commerce's use of land? Sui asked back. Chairman Cruz heavily snorted. It would be great if that was the case. But the City Lord's Manor actually asked our Chamber of Commerce to cooperate with the Maya Chamber of Commerce no matter where we pave roads or build houses. We can only start construction after the Maya Chamber of Commerce's evaluation. And during the process of the project, we have to accept the Maya Chamber of Commerce's review. Well, this is a normal method. I don't think it's a big deal. So he shook his head. This is not a big deal. Chairman Cruz's eyes widened. Do you know what the people sent by the Maya Chamber of Commerce said? Seeing the angry expression on Chairman Cruz's face, he couldn't help but frown. Is their request excessive? Excessive? Chairman Cruz sneered. It's more than excessive. It's simply shameless. The Maya Chamber of Commerce actually asked me to take 30% of the shares in our Chamber of Commerce's road paving and house construction projects. And they asked us to take out various engineering technologies for them to review in detail. After Sui froze for a moment, he couldn't help but laugh. Ha! Is this the same method they used to deal with our new flyer to deal with your Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce? According to this, I'm afraid that after the Maya Chamber of Commerce gets all the engineering technologies from you, they will soon issue a rule declaring that your Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce doesn't have the corresponding qualifications for construction projects, right? You see, I knew you would understand. Chairman Cruz spread out his hands and said helplessly, Tell me, is there no way out for me? Sui smiled and shook his head. Okay, if there's no way out, you won't come here to complain to me. Tell me, what are you going to do? Seeing that Sui was asking the main topic, Chairman Cruz put away the anger, unwillingness, and helplessness on his face and said with a serious look, Sui, if I move our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to the Principality of Constantine, do you think that would work? Although he had already guessed Chairman Cruz's plans, when he personally heard this idea, Sui was still a bit stunned. Because the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had business all over the place, it couldn't be considered a company that was affected by Bana City. Now, that Chairman Cruz had this idea, other than the 10 companies in Bana City, all the other companies might have this idea. That's right, when I discussed this with Chairman Vincent and the others in private, they also revealed this idea. Chairman Cruz nodded in agreement with Su Yi's guess. The City Lord Manor isn't just targeting our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. They're also targeting the Armani Chamber of Commerce. The Serene Chamber of Commerce and even the Fulcao Chamber of Commerce have made their moves. The companies that have no way out aren't just our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. So he couldn't help knitting his brows. The City Lord Manor clearly had the support of the kingdom's parliament for doing this, but it was fine if they were targeting companies like the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce and the Armani Chamber of Commerce, but they even dared to move against the Fulcao Chamber of Commerce. Could it be that they weren't worried about offending the Joel family behind the Fulcao Chamber of Commerce? Or could it be that this was the action of the conservative nobles led by the Stag family against the other nobles of the Lampari kingdom? If it was like this, the Lampari kingdom wouldn't be peaceful. If you really want to move to the Principality of Constantine, there's no problem. Sui thought about it before saying with a nod, the Principality of Constantine is easy to get through. I can help you with this. But haven't you thought of a problem? Your situation is different from our company. So if you want to get rid of the rules of the City Lord Manor, you have to change the registration of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce. Of course I've thought of this. Chairman Cruz said in a deep voice, I understand what you're worried about. Indeed, like this, our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce can no longer be considered a Banna City company, which is equal to losing the foundation that we worked hard to build over the years. In order to avoid the measures of the kingdom's parliament, we might even become a foreign company. Can you accept this result? Suti asked with a serious look. What can I do if I don't accept it? Cruz sighed. Chairman Cruz gave a sigh. Those fellows are clearly trying to kill our company, so if I just wait for death, I would be an idiot. I don't have the ability or qualification to resist, so I can only hide. Suti also couldn't help giving a sigh. Since His Highness Eric became king, he expected this day to come, but he never thought that the other side would move this quickly, directly, and even barbarically. Looking at it now, they had restrained themselves when dealing with a new flyer, but when dealing with a company like the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce that didn't have a strong backing, they were incomparably barbaric. It was clear that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce wasn't the only company they wanted to deal with. According to the actions of the City Lord Manor in the past half a year, their goal was to bring Banta City under the control of those 10 companies. In other words, it was to bring Banta City under the control of the large nobles behind those 10 companies. But the problem was, were they really that confident in themselves? Were they certain that if they drove away the other companies, they would be able to run Banta City as well as before? He was deeply doubtful of this. Chapter 546. A few years ago, when New Year's passed, there would be countless people who came to Banta City from other cities looking for work. These people even surpassed the original population of Banta City by several times. So during this time, each year, Banta City would be filled with people and it would be very lively. However, after New Year's this year, the people of Banta City were surprised to find that there were much fewer people coming to Banta City from other places. Although there were still groups of people coming from other places in the First and Carriage Company's magic cars each day, there were much fewer people compared to last year. This large drop made the citizens of Banta City, who were familiar with the situation of the past few years, feel that Banta City was a bit deserted this year. When winter came and the new year passed day by day, the people of Banta City found something that surprised them. Because of the waves of people that came to Banta City over the past few years, and adding in the increase in people's income, the various large companies had opened countless stores in the city to satisfy the needs of the people that came. But now, the stores in the city were all closing their doors. At first, it was the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce that announced that they were closing their housing sales center outside the city. Then the Armani Chamber of Commerce announced that they were closing their 2 clothing stores in the city. After this, there were more and more companies that announced that they were closing their stores. The people of Banta City even woke up every night, and when they went out the next day, they found that there were several stores that were closing. If it was said that the people of Banta City felt a bit deserted because there were fewer people on the streets, then the stores closing one by one made this feeling even deeper. It was like in the blink of an eye, Banta City that was even more prosperous than Anvilmar City had suddenly fallen. If this trend continued, perhaps it wouldn't take long before Banta City returned to being a small and remote city. Even if there were many people in Banta City who were dissatisfied with how lively Banta City had become and how peaceful it was before, everyone had to admit that as long as Banta City became more prosperous, the lives of everyone in Banta City would become better. Returning to the peace of the past was good, but if Banta City became poor again, people would lose their good jobs and their lives would become hard again. That was something that no one was willing to accept. But whether he was willing to accept it or not was one thing, and whether he could stop this change was another. Moreover, the fact in front of everyone was that this trend couldn't be reversed. Banta City seemed to be walking further and further down the path of turning back. Seeing the shops with the familiar company emblems announcing their closure one by one, leaving only the flags of the 10 companies that were still flying in Banta City, the people of Banta City couldn't help revealing a trace of resentment when they looked at these flags. If it wasn't for those fellows, how could the new flyer leave Banta City? If the new flyer didn't leave Banta City, how could Banta City have become like this? These resentful people did not only include many ordinary people who used to have good jobs, but later lost their jobs because of the 10 companies, but also many nobles in the city. These nobles in Banta City only needed to invest in a company, and they would receive quite a bit of dividends each year, living a comfortable life. But these 10 companies came and squeezed out the other companies, causing these nobles to lose large amounts of benefits. If they were to compare the degree of resentment, these nobles were even more resentful than the normal citizens. The current situation wasn't good, so these nobles could only hide their resentment in their hearts. If they waited for a suitable time, this resentment would definitely explode. But unlike these nobles who didn't dare vent their resentment because of their status as nobles, the normal citizens were resentful. But to them, the most important thing was their own lives. Now that the 10 companies had monopolized most of the jobs in the city, they kept their wages as low as possible, and their work intensity was several times that of the other companies in Banta City. If they continued to stay in Banta City, it was clear that they wouldn't be able to obtain the same satisfying jobs as before. So after thinking about it, the people of Banta City finally made a decision. They would leave Banta City and go to other places to find satisfying jobs. Actually, before this, when a new flyer went to the Principality of Constantine to open the Shinfei farm, they had already recruited many old farmers from Banta City, and there were many old farmers who had moved their entire families there. Adding in the fact that there were many people who came to Banta City from other places looking for work each year. For the citizens of Banta City, leaving Banta City wasn't a hard decision to make. Before the first month of the new year passed, there was a situation that was completely different from normal in Banta City. In the past, there would be countless people coming to Banta City from other places, but there were groups of people leaving Banta City this year. Some went east to the Mirando Duchy. The new flyer worked with the Mirando Duchy and the Kingdom of Ruhr, deciding to build a new production base in Ampriston Town in the Mirando Duchy. They were currently recruiting large amounts of workers and were in urgent need of skilled magic machine workers. At the same time, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had entered the Mirando Duchy, planning to help the Mirando Duchy build several roads that connected the duchy, which also required large amounts of labor. Other than this, the Armani Chamber of Commerce, the Serene Chamber of Commerce, and the other old companies of Banta City had moved many of their factories to Ampriston Town, so they also needed to recruit workers who were willing to follow them. It said that in order to attract these companies to invest, the Mirando Duchy had given them a very high tax rate and had many policies to support them. Although this would make the products of these companies in Ampriston Town be considered imported products by the Lampari Kingdom. According to the information that came out of these companies, the products they produced in Ampriston Town weren't planned on being sold to the Lampari Kingdom. After all, other than the Lampari Kingdom, there was a large market on the Signs Road. Some went south to the Kingdom of Ruhr. As early as last year, the new flyer, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, and the Armani Chamber of Commerce had already invested in some factories in the Kingdom of Ruhr. This year, the Kingdom of Ruhr had increased their investment in joint ventures. Although the Kingdom of Ruhr had requested these 3 companies to recruit local workers, in terms of the need for skilled workers, these 3 companies had to recruit large amounts of workers from Banda City to satisfy their needs. At the same time, the Kingdom of Ruhr had used the household magic machine technology they obtained from the new flyer to open several factories, so they also had a need for skilled workers. The Kingdom of Ruhr naturally didn't have any talents in this area, so naturally they could only look for skilled workers in Banda City. Moreover, compared to the new flyer and the other companies, the Kingdom of Ruhr gave skilled workers a higher wage. For a high-level mill worker, the new flyer gave a wage of 14 gold coins a month without overtime. As for the factories in the Kingdom of Ruhr, they gave a high wage of at least 18 gold coins a month, and they could enjoy high treatment. Apart from those who headed east and south, the vast majority of the remaining people headed west. Most of them entered the Black Rice Wasteland and stopped. They went to the factories built by the new flyer and the other companies, but now several dozen Banda City companies had moved to them. The final group went south from the Black Rice Wasteland, entering the Principality of Constantine. These people mainly entered the factories built by the new flyer in the Principality of Constantine, and some were recruited by the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, working for the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's newly built Constantine Seaside Garden District. There were quite a few people from other places who came to Banda City to look for work, but after coming to Banda City and understanding the situation, these people all went in different directions and left Banda City again. In the first month of the new year, Banda City was quite chaotic because of the new year and the people who came and went. After the first month and less than half of the second month, when one came to the streets of Banda City, one would find that this city that people called a miracle a few years ago had become an empty city. There was a bit of a cold breeze in the early spring, and there was a piece of paper that had been thrown on the street that had rolled several times in the wind, landing at 70's feet. Looking down at the piece of paper, 70 carefully picked it up. Opening it, she found that it was a promotional flyer for the Armani Chamber of Commerce's clothing store. Looking at the colorful pictures on it, and then looking at the empty street that didn't have many people, 70 couldn't help feeling a bit of pain in her heart. In her impression, Banda City had always been more prosperous than Ambilmar City and was always filled with vitality. People always had bright smiles on their faces. So why did it become like this? Although she knew that the new flyer leaving Banda City would affect Banda City, 70 never would have thought that it would be this serious. Banda City could become prosperous because of the appearance of a new flyer, which led to the development of the magic machine industry in Banda City, allowing the entire Banda City to develop. Now that Banda City had become ruined, it was also because the new flyer had left Banda City. Could it be that to Banda City, the new flyer was really that important? Actually, there was no need to ask this question. 70 was very clear that the answer was yes. She wouldn't feel any regret or annoyance because of what had already happened, coming to Banda City this time, other than finding Sue E to help her solve the problem of the refugees in her territory. She also had another important thing to do. Now that Banda City had become like this, the current Lampari kingdom had also changed. These changes weren't good changes. 70 saw many dangers from these changes. Even if she didn't want to interfere with the kingdom's internal affairs, as the Lampari kingdom's princess and as Lampuri 13th's daughter, she had to do something for the country. The first thing was to start with Banda City. Chapter 547. City Lord Kamadou looked at the form in his hand with a very strange expression. This was an application for a new company. The content was to open a company in Banda City. Properly speaking, for this kind of normal application, it wouldn't bother him as the Lord City Lord to personally look over it. But this application wasn't normal at all. First, when all the companies other than the 10 companies were leaving Banda City, there was actually someone who came to apply for a new company, which was very strange in and of itself. What was even more unusual was that the 70 Chamber of Commerce was written on the application form. City Lord Kamadou naturally knew that this so-called 70 Chamber of Commerce was a company supported by Her Highness 70. Around a month ago, Her Highness 70 suddenly came to Bana City and didn't hide her tracks. So according to what was understood, City Lord Kamadou had invited Her Highness to a banquet on behalf of the City Lord Manor. At the banquet, Her Highness 70 had told City Lord Kamadou that she might want to open a company. City Lord Kamadou thought that Her Highness 70 was joking at that time. Although the nobles of the kingdom didn't care about the rules of the royal parliament and participated in some business activities, Her Highness 70 had always kept to herself and never participated in any of this. Even when she had a good relationship with the new flyer and Su-E, she had never heard of Her Highness 70 obtaining any benefits from the new flyer. But now Her Highness 70 wanted to open her own company? How is this possible? But the application in front of City Lord Kamadou clearly told him that this wasn't a joke. Moreover, this company was called the 70 Chamber of Commerce. The applicant in name, who was the chairman, was actually the deacon closest to Her Highness 70. At the banquet, Her Highness 70 had specially introduced him to City Lord Kamadou and asked him to take care of him. Take care. City Lord Kamadou couldn't help revealing a bitter smile. Because she had decided to give up the throne, Her Highness 70's reputation in the Lampari Kingdom had reached a very high level. Whether it was in the hearts of the citizens or the nobles, she had a very high evaluation and reputation. This kind of Highness 70 suddenly wanted to open a company and throw herself into business activities. Even if she didn't use a representative and did it herself, the royal parliament wouldn't dare say a single word. To have City Lord Kamadou take care of the 70 Chamber of Commerce, that was simply a kind of irony. To be honest, he should be the one begging for Her Highness to take care of him. However, the problem that troubled City Lord Kamadou was this. Her Highness 70 wanted to come back to Bana City to open a company, so he didn't have any reason to reject her. But now that City Lord Kamadou and the 10 companies had chased out the disobedient companies and brought Bana City under their control, there was no doubt that the 70 Chamber of Commerce would destroy this good situation. Because it was a company opened by Her Highness 70, the 10 companies couldn't deal with the 70 Chamber of Commerce like they did with the other companies in Bana City. But if Her Highness 70 broke the rules of the 10 companies, it would affect the entire situation. City Lord Kamadou was 100% certain that Her Highness 70 would break the rules that were finally unified. The reason was very simple. The application clearly stated that the main business of the 70 Chamber of Commerce was magic machines. Is Her Highness here to cause trouble? City Lord Kamadou deeply knit his brows. With the close relationship between Her Highness 70 and the new flyer, if it was said that the 70 Chamber of Commerce didn't have the shadow of the new flyer behind it, City Lord Kamadou wouldn't believe it no matter what. When a new flyer was forced to leave, unexpectedly, they didn't fight back at all. City Lord Kamadou thought that the new flyer would find a chance to fight back, but he never thought that the new flyer would have this much power, being able to make Her Highness take such a clear stance. How should we deal with this? City Lord Kamadou pondered this problem and felt that it was very troublesome. Whether City Lord Kamadou was willing or not, the 70 Chamber of Commerce was smoothly opened. On the day of opening, the 70 Chamber of Commerce held a grand celebration in the store they rented, announcing the official opening to everyone. Reporters from the Banta Times and the surrounding cities were all present. There were even reporters from Anvil Mar cities, Anvil Mar Times, and the Lampuri Weekly. The opening of the 70 Chamber of Commerce caused quite a stir. Almost as soon as it opened, almost everyone in the Lampari Kingdom knew about it. If one was familiar with Her Highness 70, they would find that this method didn't match her low-key style at all. In just half a month after the 70 Chamber of Commerce opened, countless magic machines were transported into the empty factories the 70 Chamber of Commerce bought from the new flyer in the Falling Rain Valley. Following this, a bunch of people who came from who knew where were transported by the 70 Chamber of Commerce, working in the factories under the 70 Chamber of Commerce. At the same time, the 70 Chamber of Commerce was openly recruiting workers in Bana City. In the recruitment notice, the 70 Chamber of Commerce clearly stated that they would be giving workers a minimum wage of 10 gold coins a month. Although it was still a bit lacking compared to the high wage of Banna City from a few years ago, it had already far surpassed the wage of the 10 companies. Because of this, there were many Banna City residents who were planning to leave Banna City or were hesitating on whether they should leave Banna City to find work elsewhere. But they all stayed and applied to join the 70 Chamber of Commerce. There were quite a few people who stayed, and most of them were experienced workers from the various companies. But now they were all taken in by the 70 Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, the 70 Chamber of Commerce had opened over 10 factories at once, producing various household magic machines. There's a large demand for workers, so they were able to take in all the people who stayed. In just a month, the factories that had been closed for half a year in the falling rain valley were filled with the sounds of magic machines, becoming a very busy scene. In just the blink of an eye, the falling rain valley had returned to the situation when the new flyer was still here. Seeing this, the people who stayed in Banta City couldn't help feeling a trace of hope. With Her Highness 70's appearance, Banta City might be able to return to its previous prosperity. Although there were some people who were worried that the 70 Chamber of Commerce would be going against the 10 companies and the 70 Chamber of Commerce would be targeted. But because of Her Highness 70's guarantee, and adding in the fact that since the 70 Chamber of Commerce opened, whether it was the 10 companies, the Magic Machine Industry Management Department, the Royal Parliament, or the Royal Parliament, the people of Banta City had more confidence in the 70 Chamber of Commerce. Those fellows dared to go against the new flyer without any fear. But even if they had more courage, they wouldn't dare use the same method against Her Highness 70. Too naive. Sui gave a sigh and put down the Banta Times in his hand. He looked in the direction of Banta City to the northeast with a complicated expression. Before 70 opened the 70 Chamber of Commerce, she had met him and talked to him face to face. After that, she had contacted him several times to ask for his opinion. Sue, he was actually very against her doing this because she had already given up on fighting for the throne, so she should just live a secluded life in her territory. Why did she need to involve herself in the matters of the Lampari kingdom? But 70 was very determined and already had some ideas. Sui knew that it was impossible to persuade her, so he could only give up the idea of persuading her. He didn't give any suggestions and just followed her requests, doing what she wanted. The 70 Chamber of Commerce could be considered poor when it was first established. The reason why they could get on the right track in such a short period of time and produce their first batch of products in less than 2 months was all because of Su Yi's support. But Su Yi wasn't optimistic about the 70 Chamber of Commerce's prospects. Although those fellows were worried about 70's identity and didn't dare deal with the 70 Chamber of Commerce like they did with the new flyer, those fellows definitely wouldn't allow the 70 Chamber of Commerce to continue like this. Even if they didn't use any rough methods, Su Yi could think of countless ways to make the 70 Chamber of Commerce unable to keep going. Among them, there was a very direct and effective method that 70 definitely couldn't deal with. Su Yi was very clear on the consequences, but he didn't plan on reminding 70. First, even if he did, 70 wouldn't believe him. Moreover, Su Yi hoped that those fellows would really use this method to make 70 give up. Whether 70 was disheartened and returned to her territory to live a secluded life, or if she wanted to change the Lampari kingdom, Su Yi was very willing to see it. The only thing stopping Su Yi was his conscience. When capital comes to this world, from head to toe, every pore is covered in blood and filth. Su Yi gave a sigh and looked down at his hands. My hands, it won't take long before they will be covered in blood and filth. Chapter 548. For months had passed since year 3784 of the new continental calendar. Even in the north of the continent, it was already early spring and the cold weather was long gone. And in the principality of Constantine, which was located in the south of the continent, there was even a trace of heat at this time. Traces of sweat seeped out of Su Yi's forehead before converging into a stream and finally condensing on his chin. It turned into a drop of sweat that fell onto the experiment table in front of him, wetting a small area. Evita, beside him, took a towel and carefully helped him wipe off the sweat on his forehead and face. Her eyes were full of concern and worry. If it were any other time, Su Yi's emotions would have been somewhat affected by Evita's actions. But at this time, he didn't spare any attention for Evita at all. All of his attention was focused on the magic array on the experiment table, and he didn't even blink his eyes. After staring at the magic array for a long time, Su Yi slowly reached out his hand. Evita immediately handed over the magic array materials that she had prepared beforehand. Su Yi took the magic array materials and circulated the mana in his body, refining them in an instant. Combined with his surging mana, a ball of azure light condensed on a magic wand in his right hand. Su Yi's hand reached down slightly, and the ball of light came into contact with a magic array that was already half set up on the experiment table. Azure light immediately circulated on every line of the magic array and instantly lit up the entire magic array. The magic wand moved slightly on a section of the magic array and drew out a brand new line, expanding the magic array a little. As Su Yi's hand continued to move back and forth, lines of magic array were drawn at the tip of the magic wand, making the magic array more complicated little by little. Evita looked at the focused Su Yi, and her heart was full of admiration. Although this wind magic array was only a level 7 magic array and wasn't particularly high level, she could still successfully draw it with her current level of skill. But she definitely couldn't do it as smoothly as Su Yi. Moreover, there wasn't a single mistake from the beginning, and every line of the magic array was exactly the same as on the blueprint. And from the surging mana flowing through Su Yi's body, it could be seen that his level of mana had far exceeded that of an ordinary magus of the 9th rank. Even if Great Magician Camilla said that he hadn't reached the level of a great magician, Evita thought that he wasn't far from it. And Su Yi wasn't even 35 years old yet. According to his speed of improvement, it shouldn't be a problem for him to become a great magician before the age of 40. According to what Evita knew in the history of signs, there had never been a magician who had become a great magician before the age of 40. If Su Yi really became a great magician before the age of 40, he would have already made history. Moreover, Su Yi had never truly spent all his time on magic research. On the contrary, magic research only took up a very small portion of his time, so small that Evita found it somewhat unbearable. But even so, his magic level still improved so quickly. It had to be said that this was the difference between talents. But Evita had to admit that researching magic machines could also increase a mage's understanding of magic. Not to mention the researchers of the Academy of Magic, just Evita herself. When she entered the Academy of Magic, she was only a normal 4th grade magician. But now that she had entered the Academy of Magic for 3 years, she was already close to the 7th grade magician level. She was certain that even if she spent all her time and energy on researching magic, she wouldn't be able to reach this speed. Evita didn't understand why this was, but a conversation she had with Su Yi answered her doubts. Su Yi had told her that magic was just a process of a magician using magic to arrange the magic elements. Researching magic machines required precision, logical thinking, and an extremely high understanding of spatial structures. If one grasped this knowledge, it would be much easier for them to arrange and combine the magical elements to form the corresponding magic spells. Evita confidently researched Su Yi's words and found that this explanation wasn't wrong at all. While researching magic machines, she had learned all kinds of strange knowledge from Su Yi. This didn't just include spatial geometry, high-level algebra, basic physics, and the aerodynamics that she needed to study the magic airship. She also learned logical reasoning, reverse thinking, and other methods that could improve a person's logical thinking. As she researched magic machines, Evita felt that it was much easier for her to learn and grasp new magic compared to before. It was also much clearer and more thorough. Moreover, her magic level was low before, so she only learned low-grade magic. Now she was learning high-grade magic, and it was much easier for her compared to low-grade magic. It had to be because of this. But when she thought of this problem, Evita admired Su Yi even more in her heart. The strange knowledge in Su Yi's mind, Evita could guarantee that no one in signs could grasp it. But he naturally had this knowledge. It could be seen that he was a very outstanding genius. At least in terms of magic machines, Evita felt that she was far from Su-Yi's level. For example, the stage variable wind array that Su-Yi was currently drawing, it was a magic array that Evita had researched to allow the magic airship to have multiple speeds. But during her experiments, Evita found that no matter how she adjusted the magic array, she couldn't perfectly fuse the magic airship with the magic array. She couldn't change the speed of the magic airship at will. In order to solve this problem, Evita had asked Great Magician Camilla how to modify the magic array. But even after Great Magician Camilla modified the magic array, Evita still couldn't satisfy her. So in the end, Evita could only ask Su-Yi for help. It had to be said, no matter how the researchers of the Academy of Magic and the Magic Machine Development Center improved, in terms of combining magic and machines, there was no one who could compare to Su-Yi. After accepting Evita's request for help, Su-Yi immediately saw the problem with Evita's design and quickly gave a solution. The two studied it for a week before finally deciding on this magic array. Because this magic array was too complicated, Evita wasn't confident in finishing it all at once. So she gave the first drawing to Su-Yi. After around 20 minutes, Su-Yi finally stopped and let out a long sigh. Evita quickly came over and raised the towel in her hand, wanting to wipe the sweat off his forehead. Su-Yi didn't react at first, but when Evita's hand touched his face, he suddenly woke up. He quickly took the towel from Evita's hand and forcefully wiped his face a few times. A trace of disappointment flashed in Evita's eyes before her attention fell onto the magic array. After carefully looking it over and confirming that there was no mistake with the magic array, Evita reached out a finger to tap it. With the infusion of magic, the entire magic array lit up with a deep blue glow, and there was a gentle breeze that came from the magic array. Su-Yi was blown by the breeze and instantly felt much cooler. He looked at the magic array and nodded to Evita. "Try changing gears." Evita gave an unsound. Her right hand kept inputting magic, and her left hand made a small adjustment on the magic array, causing the wind coming out of the magic array to change. Following this, Evita made several adjustments, and with each adjustment, the wind coming out of the magic array would become stronger. In the end, the wind coming out of the magic array even caused the bottles of magic materials on the table to sway. "Very good, it's a success." Su-Yi laughed as he signaled to Evita to stop inputting magic. "Evita, you just need to fuse this magic array with the magic airship." "Yes, thank you for your help, Sir President." Evita smiled. Evita said with a faint smile, "If it wasn't for you, I don't know when I could solve the problem of this magic array." Su-Yi shook his head. "No, even without me, I believe that you would be able to solve this problem sooner or later. Actually, I wasn't willing to solve this problem for you because you know that I always encourage you to find your own problems and solve them. But I hope that you can speed up the development of the magic airship, so I agreed to your request." "I understand." Evita nodded before asking with a bit of doubt, "But Sir Chairman, you clearly have a better level of magic machines than all of us, so why are you participating less and less in research? I feel that if you were willing to participate in research like before, the development of our new products would greatly increase." "I said it just now. I hope that you can find your own problems and solve them. Because I'm only a single person, it's impossible for me to participate in that much research. What I hope to see the most is that you can develop your own products, and I just need to be lazy and enjoy the results." Su-Yi said with a smile. "In the end, this world can't be changed by me alone, right? You don't care about the matters of the Lampari Kingdom because of this?" Evita asked. Su-Yi was silent for a bit before giving a sigh. "It can be said like this, but the matters of the Lampari Kingdom are more complicated, so it's not something that I can do as I wish." Seeing that Su-Yi wasn't willing to discuss this topic, Evita tactfully changed the topic. She began discussing the magic array with Su-Yi again. After the discussion was over, Su-Yi left Evita's lab and came to the Shinfei farm. Looking out the farm to the east, he saw a magic armored transport car rolling up a cloud of dust in the distance. Chapter 549. Since the beastmen cleaning up the Black Rice Wasteland last year, the harassment and attacks on the new Flyers base on the Black Rice Wasteland had decreased. Entering the New Year's from last month to now, it had been close to 3 months since a single beastman dared to harass the base, not to mention directly attacking it. Of course, even if it was calm, they couldn't let down their guard. Although the 500 guards at 70 Cent had left after completing their mission and were now stationed in the 70 Chamber of Commerce's production base in the Falling Rain Valley, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce and the other companies still had their guards tightly guarding the base. They would wander around the Black Rice Wasteland from time to time, sweeping out some beastmen who didn't have eyes yet. According to the agreement between the large companies, each company would contribute 200 people to guard the Black Rice Wasteland. New Flyer would rotate the guards on the Black Rice Wasteland every month. Other than letting the guards on the Black Rice Wasteland rest for a while, it was also according to Hart's suggestion that each guard of the company could participate in actual combat, increasing their battle strength through actual combat. But for Sue E., there was another goal. It was to keep changing shifts to upgrade the military magic machines on the guards and then test them in actual combat. The ones riding the magic armor vehicles back to the Sheen Fei farm were the new Flyer guards that had been rotated out of the Black Rice Wasteland. Sue E. used the wind control spell on himself and flew to the gate of the company's guard training base to the north of the farm. After being checked by the guards, he walked in. After patiently waiting for a bit, the first magic armored vehicle drove into the base. What surprised Sue E. was that after the magic armored vehicles drove in, there was a pure gold magic sedan that drove in. This magic sedan clearly wanted to drive into the base, but it was stopped by the guards. The window of the driver's seat rolled down, and a young man with the characteristics of the Principality of Constantine poked his head out, cursing at the guards. "Don't you have eyes? Can't you see that this is the Lord's car? Get out of the way." The guard replied indifferently, "I'm sorry. This is a military restricted area. Without permission, unrelated people are not allowed to enter." "Unrelated my ass. This is Sir Lord's territory. You dare to not let me in? Do you believe that I will immediately drive over and kill you?" The driver continued to shout arrogantly. The guard didn't reply and took out the weapon in his hand, pointing it at the magic sedan. His intentions were clear. Seeing the reaction of the guard, the driver was even angrier. He cursed out and started the magic sedan. Based on his stance, it seemed like he was prepared to charge over. Seeing that the situation was about to erupt, the guards of the company at the entrance were already prepared. Even a medium-sized magic trebuchets hidden in the base were activated. Sue E knit his brows and walked out. Seeing Sue E come out, the guards relaxed a bit, but they still kept staring at the magic sedan. The driver stuck his head out again, glanced at Sue E, and asked, "Hey, are you in charge? Quickly have these blind fellows move aside." Sue E shook his head and was too lazy to care about him. He looked at the back of the magic sedan and raised his voice. "Lord, please get out. No vehicles outside the base are allowed to enter. Please understand." After a while, there was a cough that came from the magic sedan. Lord Wine opened the door and came out with a smile. He first looked at the gate of the base before Lord Wine said to Sue E with a smile, Sorry. I fell asleep in the car and didn't know we were here. Chairman Sue is right. This is an important base for your company's guards. For outsiders like us, we can't casually enter." Hearing Lord Wine emphasize the word outsiders, Sue E slightly knit his brows and said, "Lord Wine's words are too serious. May I ask, Lord Wine, for you to suddenly come here, is there something you need?" Seeing that Sue E didn't want to let him in, Lord Wine's face couldn't help sinking, but he still revealed a smile. He pointed at the row of magic armored vehicles parked in the base and said, "I met them on the way and asked them. They said that you were coming to the base, so I followed them." "That means that Lord Wine is looking for me? Then what is it?" Sue E asked. "Actually, it's related to these magic armored vehicles." Lord Wine gave 2 dry laughs before continuing. "I came this time to ask Chairman Sue, are you selling these magic armored vehicles?" Sue E was a bit surprised. "What? Lord Wine is also interested in this?" "Yes." Lord Wine nodded. Chairman Sue, You also know that I've been in a bit of conflict with Count Fran to the south. I feel that. Your magic armored vehicles are very easy to use. If you can sell me some, I'll be more assured. A bit of conflict. Sui found this a bit funny. It was clearly Lord Wine who kept provoking him, and Count Fran couldn't take it anymore. So he started a war with Lord Wine. Now that both sides were fighting to the death, this was called a bit of conflict. Sui always felt that the Principality of Constantine wasn't like a country, and this matter proved it. Count Fran was another lord who ruled a territory to the south of Lord Wine's territory. He was the same as Lord Wine, a count of the same status as the Principality of Constantine. But the relationship between the two sides wasn't harmonious at all, and now they were fighting. In comparison, this place was more like a period of the Middle Ages in Europe. The feudal lords were all independent, just like small countries. Although these two lords weren't on good terms before, they were still at peace. The reason why they suddenly became like this was mainly because of New Flyer. When Lord Wine asked Sui for New Flyer to sell him a part of the military magic machines to pay for the rent from New Flyer's land, Sui had guessed that he would make a move. But Sui never thought that Lord Wine would be this anxious. Just a month ago, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had agreed to give him the military magic machines he needed. In the end, he had provoked Count Fran several times last month, and both sides had entered the real battle stage at the beginning of the month. It had only been half a month since then, but the two sides had already fought more than 10 battles, big and small. In these battles, Lord Wine had the absolute advantage without a single exception. He had already taken a small part of Count Fran's territory without any hesitation. If they kept fighting, it wouldn't take long before Count Wine defeated Count Fran and took all his territory. And in the Principality of Constantine, this was something that everyone tacitly agreed to. As long as Count Wine had the strength to take all of Count Fran's territory, Duke Stantine would recognize him as the lord of these two territories without any doubt. Based on this, Sui thought of Anclo, who was in the south of the Principality of Constantine. With the support of the weapons and equipment provided by New Flyer, Anclo had started with several hundred subordinates. In just over a year, he had already taken quite a bit of territory in the south of the Principality of Constantine. According to the person who came to trade with him last time, Anclo was prepared to submit a request to Duke Stantine for the land he occupied to be his private territory. Moreover, there was a high chance that it would be approved. As long as he became a lord recognized by the Stantine Duchy, Anclo could fight with other lords just like Lord Wine, competing for the other side's territory. Anclo's dream was to control the Principality of Constantine, and then change the Principality of Constantine according to his ideas. As for this process, it would without a doubt be very long. Chairman Sui. Chairman Sui? Seeing Sui in deep thought, Lord Wine thought that he was considering his request, but he found that he was looking to the south like he was in a daze. Lord Wine quickly raised his voice to call out. I'm sorry, I was thinking too far ahead. Sui said with a smile. After giving a cough, he said with a serious look, Lord, the magic armored vehicle is our company's newest military magic machine. You should know this. Normally speaking, this newest military magic machine isn't easily sold. Hearing this, Lord Wine revealed a happy smile. Sui's tone had a clear meaning. This thing could be sold. As expected, Sui softly continued, but since our company came to the Principality of Constantine, the Lord has taken care of our company. Our company being able to take root here and develop to this state, it can't be separated from the Lord's support. Of course. Lord Wine nodded with a smile. For a company like your New Flyer that helps everyone's lives, of course I have to support it. Not to mention that the Duke has personally told me to help you as much as possible. Sui gave a secret laugh in his heart. Whether it was Lord Wine or Duke Stantine's so-called support, it was all based on a single word, which was money. In order to smoothly develop in the Principality of Constantine, the New Flyer invested over 500,000 gold coins in the Principality of Constantine each year. As for the cost on the surface, it was also over 1 million gold coins. If such a large investment couldn't be exchanged for a return, It would be too unbelievable. In short, Lord, if you really need this magic armored vehicle, it isn't that we can't discuss it. But Suki deliberately paused and looked at Lord Wine with a ghost of a smile. The price of this magic armored vehicle is much more expensive than your magic sedan, so don't mention a price to me. I don't have that many gold coins. Lord Wine cut Sui off. He looked at Sui with sparkling eyes and said with a serious look, Chairman Su, didn't you always want your own territory? How about I give you a piece now? Chapter 550. Su, he almost choked to death on his own saliva. He just wanted to discuss the price with Lord Wine, trying to raise it a bit. Anyway, only New Flyer could produce magic armored vehicles, so as long as Lord Wine needed it, no matter what price Sui gave, he could only accept it. But Sui never thought that he would at most receive some benefits from Lord Wine. For example, mining resources, renting some land, or extending the lease period, or adjusting the recruitment of local workers. But Lord Wine had actually said that he would give him a piece of land. Sui looked at Lord Wine in a daze for a while before asking with wide eyes, Wait, Lord, what did you say? You want to give me a piece of land? What does that mean? That's what it means. What else could it mean? Lord Wine answered matter-of-factly. Lord Wine replied with a natural look, Didn't you tell me before that if I could have a piece of land that belonged to you, no one would chase New Flyer away? I can satisfy your wish now and give you a piece of land from my land. Is this all right? Sui was surprised. Giving your land to me as my private land. Duke Stantine wouldn't agree, right? It's fine as long as I agree. As for whether the Duke agrees or not, Chairman Sui, I don't need to teach you how to make the Duke agree, right? Lord Wine said with a lecherous look. Sui nodded to show he understood. Of course he knew how to make Duke Stantine agree. It was the only method that had worked before, which was to throw in money. Sui considered it for a bit before calming his mind and asking Lord Wine, All right, Lord, are you really planning on doing this? How much land are you planning on giving me? If it's too little, it's far from enough. Lord Wine pointed at the New Flyer Guard training base in front of him and said with a smile, How about I give you this piece of land? Didn't you say that outsiders couldn't casually enter this place? As long as this place becomes your private territory, you will be able to say that with confidence. Seeing Sui frown, Lord Wine laughed. It's just a joke. Chairman Sui, don't mind it. Don't worry. Since I've already decided to do this, of course I won't be so stingy. How about this? Chairman Sui, let's divide the 200,000 hectares of land that your Chamber of Commerce has rented from me. What do you think? Sui's eyes lit up, but after thinking about it, he shook his head and said, Sir Overlord, aren't you being too stingy? 200,000 hectares is far from enough. Lord Wine had an unhappy expression. Chairman Sui, don't be too greedy. You should know very well how important a territory is and how determined I am to transfer it to you. Of course I understand, but 200,000 hectares is barely enough for our company's current development plans. Our company will still need to develop in the future, so having more space is also good. Am I right, Sir Overlord? This kind of territory is fixed. Giving you an extra piece means one less piece for me. Do you think that I can casually give you more? This is very simple. As long as the Sir Overlord obtains more territory from other places, it's fine, right? Of course, our New Flyer will definitely do our best to support the Sir Overlord. It's like this. It isn't impossible, but Sui and Lord Wine had an intense negotiation before finally reaching an agreement. With the river that flowed into the endless sea not far away from the Shinfei farm, the area from the river to the sea would be the New Flyer. According to the map that Sui had Evita explore with a magic airship, this area was around 240,000 hectares. After discussing the area, it was time to set the price. Lord Wine opened his mouth like a lion and set the price at 10 million gold coins. Although Sui knew that this price was very, very low, if this was Earth, it would be given for free, he still desperately haggled and finally lowered the price to 8 million gold coins. For such a large transaction, naturally it was impossible for the New Flyer to pay in gold coins. Lord Wine didn't come for gold coins. According to the agreement between them, the new flyer had to provide Lord Wine with 100 magic armored vehicles, 1,000 magic repeating crossbows, 5 large magic trebuchets, and 3,000 individual military magic machines. Other than the military request, Lord Wine also wanted the Frestac Chamber of Commerce to help him build 3 canned fruit factories and 5 household magic machine factories, as well as transfer the corresponding production technology. Calculating it all, the value of these things added together was less than 5 million gold coins. The reason why Lord Wine agreed in the end was because Sue-E had taken the initiative to send the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guards to help him when necessary. Although Lord Wine hadn't personally seen the battle strength of the new flyer guards, just based on the large amounts of elves and dwarves, as well as the incomparably fierce human warriors, he could tell that their battle strength was very terrifying. Moreover, according to the news from the Black Rice Wasteland, the new flyer guards had the absolute advantage against the most brutal beastmen tribes of the Black Rice Wasteland. Up to this point, there hadn't been any news of the new flyer guards dying and not a single one being heavily injured. If he could have such a terrifying battle strength as reinforcements, it would without a doubt greatly increase Lord Wine's confidence. After both sides reached an agreement, they immediately signed an agreement. According to the agreement, as long as Sue-E could defeat Duke Stantine and obtain Duke Stantine's approval, this agreement would automatically take effect. After sending Lord Wine off, Sue-E couldn't help the excitement in his heart as he broke out in laughter. When he was in the Lampari Kingdom, although he had obtained the status of a noble and obtained a piece of private territory, this small territory was very small. But not mentioning how small this territory was, it was still under the control of the Lampuri Kingdom, so it couldn't be considered as territory. Then the situation in the Lampari Kingdom changed, and he announced that he would give up his status as a noble, as well as giving up his private territory, because he was clear that even if he didn't give it up, the royal parliament would have done the same thing as Lampuri 13th when he was still alive. They would have taken away his status as a noble and taken back his private territory. So strictly speaking, his private territory in the Lampuri Kingdom couldn't be considered a territory that belonged to him. In the end, with the strength he and the new flyer had, they didn't have the possibility of having a private territory in the Lampari Kingdom. But in the Principality of Constantine, they had this condition. The Principality of Constantine was very weak, so Duke Stantine didn't care about the private struggles of the local lords at all. If Lord Wine defeated Count Fran, he could obtain Fran Count's territory. Like now, Lord Wine was transferring his territory to Sue-E. This was impossible in the Lampari Kingdom, but it was definitely possible in the Principality of Constantine. Sue-E was very confident in dealing with Duke Stantine and obtaining the official recognition of the Principality of Constantine, becoming a lord of the Principality of Constantine. If all of this was done, it would mean that Sue-E would have a piece of land that completely belonged to him for the first time. Although this territory was only around 240,000 hectares, which was around 2,000 square kilometers, it couldn't be considered small. Moreover, on this territory, Sue-E could completely control it and didn't need to care about the opinions of others. The only prerequisite was that he had enough strength to defend this territory. Sue-E didn't have this confidence in the Lampari Kingdom, but in the Principality of Constantine, Sue-E felt that there was no problem. Lord Wine's 10,000 private guards were considered quite a bit in the Principality of Constantine. After being equipped with the military magic machines provided by the new flyer, they could easily defeat Count Fran, who was on the same level as him. Although the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guards were only 1,000 people, their battle strength wasn't inferior to Lord Wine's scattered private guards. It was even possible that they far surpassed them. With this kind of power, perhaps the new flyer wasn't qualified to participate in the competition for the lords of the Principality of Constantine, but it wasn't a problem for them to defend this territory. Turning around and looking around, Sue-E found that his attitude had completely changed. When he was here before, he only treated himself as a guest, and this place didn't give him the feeling of home. But now that he had signed this agreement with Lord Wine, he treated this place as his private property. He felt that as he looked around, He was filled with warmth. After greedily looking around for a while, He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. After pausing for a bit, he returned to the guard training grounds. The guards who had returned had already gotten out of the magic armored vehicles and were standing in a neat square formation on the training grounds under Hart's command. Although there were quite a few elven and dwarven warriors, they didn't hesitate to follow Hart's orders. After close to a year of fighting, the different races of the new flyer guards had formed a deep friendship, and there was no longer the estrangement from before. Now, even the proud elven warriors were willing to listen to the orders of the human guard Captain Hart. Seeing the firm faces of the guards, He nodded with a faint smile. He gave a short speech to everyone, praising their contributions during this time before dismissing them. When the guards scattered, Hart came to Yi's side with a strange expression. He first gave a bow to Yi before giving Yi a backpack. Yi took in a daze. "Could it be that you brought back a gift for me?" Hart shook his head. "No, these are the orders I received." Chapter 551. Yi was even more surprised. "There's actually this much?" Hart said with a bitter smile. "Yes, I never thought that it would be like this. Those fellows are simply crazy. There were many people who wanted to take off the equipment we were wearing." He was a bit speechless. This time when the new flyers sent their company guards to the Black Rice Wasteland to clean up the beastmen, they were also tasked with experimenting with the military magic machines they had developed. When it was just the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guards acting alone, it didn't matter. But when the Frestac Chamber of Commerce worked with 70's private guards and the guards of the other companies, after fighting together several times, there were countless people who were shocked by the powerful battle strength of the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guards. They became interested in the military magic machines that the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's guards were wearing. At first, it was Chairman Cruz of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce who asked Yi to buy some military magic machines to equip their company's guards. Later on, as they worked together more and more, the Armani Chamber of Commerce, the Renekton Chamber of Commerce, and the other companies that moved to the Black Rice Wasteland all requested to buy military magic machines from the new flyer. When the guards of these companies were equipped with these military magic machines and found that their battle strength had increased, the new flyer's military magic machines became even more popular, so there were endless orders that came in. New flyer's profits had been greatly affected because they had moved out of the Lampari Kingdom in half a year, but now that they had opened the military magic machine market, their profits had surpassed last year's profits. Just last month, the new flyer's profits had broken 1 million gold coins. Although the household magic machine profits had increased compared to before, reaching 400,000 gold coins, it was still a bit worse compared to last year. Other than this, the magic machine department's profits had increased because of the magic sedans and the new large transport magic cars, reaching over 300,000 gold coins. As for the remaining 300,000 gold coins, it was all created by the new flyer's military department that had been established for less than a year. More than half of them were obtained from the military magic machines sold to the guards of the various large merchant guilds. This time, when Hart led 200 guards to the Black Rice Wasteland to carry out a mission, he brought along the newest military magic machine developed by New Flyer. He originally had the intention of advertising it. Although he was confident that the other merchant guilds would be interested in this new military magic machine, he didn't expect Hart to bring back so many orders. When he opened his backpack, he found that there were a total of 37 orders. Apart from the companies that moved to the Black Rice Wasteland, there were also some companies from the Lampari Kingdom. You didn't tell them that if the Lampuri Kingdom wants to buy it, because of the tariffs, the price will be a bit higher? He asked Hart. "I did, but the people sent by the Chamber of Commerce all said that the price isn't a problem as long as they have the goods," Hart replied. He picked up the 13 orders from the Lampari Kingdom's Chamber of Commerce and chuckled. "Hart, tell me, how many of these companies have the shadow of those large nobles behind them?" Hart grinned. "Sir Chairman, I'm afraid you're wrong. In my opinion, you should be asking me how many of these companies don't have the shadow of those large nobles behind them." "Yes, you're right." He looked at each order and shook his head with a smile. "Forget it. We don't need to care about which large nobles are behind these companies. We only need to know that they will pay. Hart, have you explained the rules to them? I've explained it. Hart nodded. When the time comes, they will send people to the Black Rice Wasteland to receive our goods. We don't need to care about the rest. Very good. It seems that these large nobles don't want to attract too much attention. That's exactly what I want. He was silent for a bit before saying to Hart, since the other side wants to buy it, we aren't unwilling to sell it. You can pass these orders to Kennard later. He will make the appropriate follow-up arrangements. Hart nodded. After hesitating a bit, he suddenly reached into his chest and took out a letter for Sue-E. Sue-E was a bit confused as he took this letter without a clear signature. When he opened it, he was surprised to find that the one who wrote this letter was the current commander of the Lampari Kingdom's Western Army, Varian Lantis. Sue-E had only seen this Commander Lantis once because of 70's recommendation. Why did he suddenly write a letter and have Hart bring it over, making it seem so mysterious? Opening the letter, Sue-E understood. Putting aside the meaningless greetings in the letter, there was only one meaning in the letter. It was that the Western Army also wanted to buy military magic machines from the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. After reading the letter, Sue-E deeply knit his brows. Although I've heard that the Kingdom's army has the right to buy their own equipment, it should be approved by the Kingdom's army department, right? Commander Lantis wants to buy military magic machines from our company. Has he received approval from the Lampari Kingdom's army department? I'm not too clear, but the people Commander Lantis sent told me that there is no need to worry about the Lampari Kingdom's internal problems. If the Western Army can solve their own equipment problem, the Kingdom's army department will be happy and definitely won't oppose it. Hart said, but this is the problem. He shook his head and said, the Lampari Kingdom gave up their own equipment because the Kingdom's army department doesn't have the money and can't provide enough equipment for the Kingdom's army. Now that the Western Army wants to buy their own equipment, this is a good idea, but where do they have the money? The people Commander Lantis sent told me to pass on the words Commander Lantis said. Commander Lantis said that if the new flyer wants to take root in the Black Rice Wasteland, they can't do without the support of the Kingdom's Western Army. If the Frestec Chamber of Commerce can provide enough help to the Western Army on this matter, the Western Army will repay them at the appropriate time. Oh, Sue-E looked at Hart with a strange expression. Is this a threat or a sincere offer to cooperate? I don't know. Hart shook his head. But the Western Army's influence on the Black Rice Wasteland is unquestionable. The Beastmen have been obediently staying in the Black Rice Wasteland for so many years because of the Western Army. If we can obtain the support of the Western Army, it will be much more convenient for our company to do things in the Black Rice Wasteland. Yes, I believe that is the case. But the problem is, how should we cooperate? Sue-E frowned as he looked at the letter in his hand. After thinking for a bit, he said, all right, I'll send a reply to Commander Lantis first. You can pass it to Commander Lantis for me. No matter what, there is no harm in establishing a connection between the two sides. Yes, I also think so. Hart nodded in agreement. After looking over the order, Sue-E had Hart report to Kennard and then asked him the question he was most concerned about. How is the individual magic bazooka? Hearing this question, Hart immediately became excited. It is extremely useful. Hart exclaimed in an extremely exaggerated tone. Sir President, do you know that when we took this thing out, the guards of the other chambers of commerce were very confused. They felt that this thing was too heavy and inconvenient to carry around. It also didn't look very powerful. They were wondering why we spent so much effort to develop such a piece of trash. And then, Sue-E asked with a smile. Then, when we bumped into a group of blind beastmen, those guys were all dumbfounded. Hart laughed. You didn't see it that time, but I was carrying the magic bazooka. After I fired the bazooka, a few of the 100 or so beastmen were killed on the spot. The beastmen were so scared that they even forgot to resist, and were all killed by our next volley. That might be the easiest battle I've ever won in my life. It could be said that I didn't do anything. Sue-E wasn't as happy as Hart. Instead, he asked in surprise, you only used one volley to deal with 100 or so beastmen. I say, Hart, do you know how much it costs to fire a rocket? Seeing the expression on Su Yi's face, Hart knew that he was in trouble. After thinking about it, he could only awkwardly scratch his head. This, Sir Chairman, didn't you say that when we used it for the first time, we had to create a very shocking effect so that they would want to buy it? When we fire a volley, over 100 beastmen were blown away. That scene was very shocking. You see, there are many orders here that specify that they want to buy the magic bazooka. Su Yi rolled his eyes. We've only just finished researching this thing and are still far from mass production. Even if there are orders, we can only look at them because we simply can't produce that much. Even if you said you fired a volley, the Chamber of Commerce would have to spend an entire week to produce the rockets you used. Also, the cost of the explosive rockets you use is 8 to 10 gold coins per round. How many gold coins did you use for one volley? Hart's expression immediately became unsightly. We had 100 rockets at the time and used 50 in one volley. That's for the 500 gold coins. After calculating the exact amount, Hart's expression became even more unsightly. Sir Chairman, I didn't think that much at the time. I'm sorry. Because of my mistake, the Chamber of Commerce has suffered such a large loss. This money will be deducted from my salary. Hart originally wanted to say that the money would be deducted from his salary, but he suddenly remembered that although his salary and benefits were very high, it still didn't reach 400 gold coins. If it really was deducted, it would be equivalent to him working for a year for nothing. All right, don't say this nonsense. Su Yi waved his hand. The Chamber of Commerce can afford a few hundred gold coins, and I don't care. But I don't want you to develop such a wasteful habit in the future. Clearly, against 100 beastmen, a few rockets would be enough to make them unable to resist, but you fired 50 at once. This is too wasteful. Yes. Sir Chairman, you're right. I will definitely remember this. Hart nodded. Su Yi didn't continue to pursue this matter. After giving a few words of advice, he asked Hart for the combat records of the individual magic bazooka and left the Chamber of Commerce's guard training base. Leaving the training base and walking towards the sea, Su Yi entered the brand new Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce that had just been completed last month. When he walked in, he bumped into Great Magician Camilla, who had just come out. Seeing Su Yi, Great Magician Camilla's eyes lit up. He reached into his chest and threw something over. Hey kid, I'll give you a fun toy. Chapter 552. Su Yi was confused as he reached out to catch it. He found that Great Magician Camilla had thrown him a black metal box that was around 20 centimeters long and 5 centimeters thick. This metal box felt very light in his hand. It should have been made from the new super light rare earth alloy developed by the Steel Smelting Center. Not only was this new rare earth alloy very light, it was also very hard. At the same time, it had very good magic penetration. If a magic array was attached to this new rare earth alloy, the effects of the magic array would be much better than if it was attached to normal metal. Now New Flyer's magic machines were gradually using this new rare earth alloy as the core of the magic array, upgrading all their products. The new generation of bladeless adaptive magic fans that would be released this summer, the core of the magic array would be made from this rare earth alloy. According to the results of the Academy of Magic's tests, because of this change, the magic output of the new magic fan had increased by 17%. It was even better than directly increasing the power of the magic array by grade. Because there weren't many rare earth ores from the Mirando Duchy. Naturally, there weren't many rare earth alloys that could be smelted. New Flyer was very careful when using these rare earth alloys, even being stingy. Other than using them to make power components, they only used a small amount for magic experiments. Great Magician Camilla was a special researcher of the Academy of Magic, so he had the right to use the materials of the Academy of Magic, but of course he wouldn't randomly use them. Then, what was this metal box used for? You'll know once you inject a bit of magic into it. Great Magician Camilla pointed at the metal box as he spoke to Su Yi with a smile. Is this your new magic machine? Su Yi was very confused because this thing didn't look like a machine at all. Try it. You'll know once you try it. Great Magician Camilla urged. He was a bit speechless at great magician Camilla's childishness as he got older. He rolled his eyes and activated his magic, injecting it into the metal box. As expected, the light of a magic array being activated could be seen from a box. However, to Su Yi's surprise, the light that seeped out from the gaps of the metal box was not the light of the 4 elemental spells, but a strange light purple light. While Su Yi was in a daze, a familiar voice came from the metal box. Su Yi, can you hear me? Hello, are you there? Su Yi, is Grandpa with you? Steal. Su Yi was shocked. Although the voice was slightly different from the real person's, Su Yi could easily tell that this voice was definitely Steel's. Su Yi looked at the metal box in his hand in surprise. Could it be that this thing had a recording function? Was it possible to record Steel's voice? However, in the next moment, he realized that he had guessed wrong. Steel's voice came from the metal box again. Is that you, Su Yi? I heard your voice. Are you by Grandpa's side? Did Grandpa give you his magic communicator? Su Yi was stunned. Could it be that this thing wasn't recording and was talking to Steel in real time? Su Yi calmed himself and replied to the metal box. Yes, it's me. Steel, are you also holding a magic communicator? Are you talking to me in real time? That's right. How did you know? Steel's voice was a bit surprised. Did Grandpa tell you? Su Yi looked up at great magician Camilla and found that he had a bit of surprise on his face. No, Grandpa just gave this thing to me. Are you still at home? I'm still at home. Akali is also beside me. She brought this magic communicator over and said that she wanted to give you and me a pleasant surprise. Steel's voice was clearly filled with joy. This thing really is not bad. Although I'm at home, I could talk to you at any time. It's too convenient. It is indeed very convenient. But help me tell Akali that as a researcher of the Academy of Magic, she actually dared to hide the results of her research from me, the chairman. I will deduct her bonus for this month. Su Yi said. Based on what? Steel had just laughed when Akali's nervous and unconvinced voice sounded. Chairman, this was great magician Camilla's idea. He wanted to hide it from you. So, if you want to deduct his bonus, you have to deduct his first. Su Yi laughed. I don't care. I'll definitely deduct your bonus for this month. I won't do it, Akali's voice suddenly stopped. Su Yi had cut off the input of magic into the metal box. Looking at the normal-looking metal box in his hand, Su Yi looked up at great magician Camilla with a face of pleasant surprise. Grandpa, how did you think of researching this thing? What kind of magic array is inside? Is there any hope of popularizing it? What is the maximum communication range of this thing? How many people can it talk to at the same time? Can it talk to different people in different frequencies? Can it set up a transfer station and more? Wait a minute. Great magician Camilla raised his hand and cut off Su Yi's question. Looking over Su Yi with a frown, great magician Camilla asked with a confused look, I thought that you would be very surprised to see this new thing. But why do I find that you're not surprised at all? You even seem very familiar with it. Could it be that someone told you ahead of time? Su Yi laughed. He thought that cell phones were already common on Earth. So how could this simple thing that was like a walkie-talkie surprise him? But to be honest, he was indeed a bit surprised. Only, he wasn't surprised by the magic communicator itself, but rather the fact that there was a magic array that could achieve this effect. If this thing could be developed like he wanted, wouldn't it be possible to make cell phones in this world? Thinking of making a cell phone in the magical world of signs, Su Yi's expression couldn't help becoming a bit strange. No one told me ahead of time, but didn't you mention to me before that you wanted to make a convenient magic machine to talk to? Su Yi asked back. Did I? Great magician Camilla knit his brows to think, but he couldn't remember mentioning this matter to Su Yi. But this wasn't an important problem. Compared to this, he cared more about the problems Su Yi had just mentioned. There's a small spatial magic array inside. This array is originally a transport array, but after some research, I changed it into a magic array that can only transmit sound through space. Great magician Camilla said. Spatial array? Su Yi took a deep breath. Spatial magic was something that one could only learn after becoming a great magician. Moreover, even for a great magician, spatial magic was very hard to learn. The degree of control a great magician had over spatial magic almost represented their own strength. Teleportation arrays were one of the most difficult spatial magic arrays to create. Before this, most of the magicians and signs used transport arrays to create transport arrays, using them to transport people. But a complete transport array was very hard to build, and it was also very hard to maintain. So in the entire signs, there were only a few countries that had less than 20 transport arrays. Even the Sky Castle, where the headquarters of the Guild of Magic was located, only had 2 teleportation portals. It wasn't surprising that Great Magician Camilla could control transport arrays, but he could actually change them, turning them into a transport array that could only transmit sound. This was just too shocking. He wasn't a great magician yet, so he couldn't control spatial magic. He couldn't understand how Great Magician Camilla did it at all. But this didn't stop him from understanding how hard it was. The cell phones on Earth were able to make calls because they used sophisticated electronic devices to compress the sound and transmit it through radio waves before finally turning it into sound on another cell phone. There is no need to describe the complexity of this. On Earth, the birth of a cell phone required countless research results and mechanical research to pave the way. But here, Great Magician Camilla had actually changed a magic array and completed this research. This really made Sue-Yi feel that this was unbelievable. Looking at the metal box in his hand again, Sue-Yi's heart suddenly skipped a beat. "Grandfather, you're working with a colleague on this research, right?" So I had a colleague give the other magic communicator to Steele. "I came looking for you," Great Magician Camilla said with a sigh. "Based on your voice, Steele should be very happy, but you don't seem to be pleasantly surprised. You really make me disappointed." Sue-Yi laughed. "I'm very pleasantly surprised, but my surprise is different from Steele's." "Grandfather, since you're working with a collie, you should be using the magic array resonance technology that she's mainly researching, right? If my guesses aren't wrong, the magic communicator in Steele's and my hands should have the same magic array, right?" Great Magician Camilla revealed a faint smile. "Kid, you really are smart. Right, this thing is designed like this. What? Do you have any objections?" "I don't have any specific opinions right now, since I only learned about this thing today." He shook his head and said with a sigh, "But grandfather, you never would have thought that this thing would have such a large effect on the world." Chapter 553. It was about to enter the spring harvest season. At this time of the year, Cantona was the busiest, but also the happiest. Because the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had over 10 sets of agricultural magic machines. When it came to the spring harvest season, many people in Banna City and the surrounding cities would invite the Cantona Chamber of Commerce to help with the harvest. Although it was very tiring, not only did this work earn quite a bit of money, it also gave the Cantona Chamber of Commerce quite a bit of fame. So even if the Cantona Chamber of Commerce was no longer a small company with only 10 sets of agricultural magic machines, Cantona still placed great importance on this work. However, at this time this year, Cantona was worried. It was for nothing else. It was because of a new rule from the City Lord Manor. The City Lord Manor required that in order to ensure that the spring harvest would go smoothly, Banta City had to use the brand of agricultural magic machines from the City Lord Manor. As for this brand, it was of course the Haida Chamber of Commerce's Haida brand agricultural magic machines that were recognized by the department. Actually, everyone knew why the City Lord Manor made this rule, but Cantona had no other choice. If the other companies couldn't do business in Banna City, they could choose to move, but the Cantona Chamber of Commerce's farming business was based on Banna City's land, so they couldn't avoid Banta City's jurisdiction at all. Cantona had considered leaving Banna City, but the Cantona Chamber of Commerce couldn't just leave the Lampari Kingdom. If they opened their business in the other cities of the kingdom, with the current situation, it would only delay it a bit. This was because the department was promoting this rule across the Lampari Kingdom. They said that in order to ensure that the farming was standardized and reasonable, they had to use the brand of agricultural magic machines recognized by the department. With no other choice, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce could only buy 10 sets of agricultural magic machines from the Haida Chamber of Commerce, which cost close to 10,000 gold coins. Cantona thought that they could continue their business like this, but when the Cantona Chamber of Commerce began their first harvest in Mexilin village, there were many problems with the 10 sets of agricultural magic machines. There were only 100 mu of wheat left in Mexilin village, and they couldn't finish harvesting it in 3 days. It had to be known, in the past few years, as long as the Cantona Chamber of Commerce went all out, Mexilin village's 100 mu of farmland could be harvested in a single morning. Hearing the Haida brand agricultural magic harvester not far away give an ear-piercing sound before it stopped without making a sound, not even releasing the light of the magic array, Cantona deeply knit his brows. In these 3 days, only the Haida brand small magic harvester had been used, but 13 of the 20 Haida brand small magic harvesters had all kinds of problems. 6 of them had serious problems and couldn't be activated at all. What was the most? The Chamber of Commerce's. This problem was simply unbelievable. It had to be known that this bearing was the foundation of the small magic harvester, so it should be made of the best material. But this Haida brand small magic harvester had only been used for 2 days, and even the bearing had broken. It could be seen just how bad the quality was. Guild leader, we can't do this anymore. A Cantona Chamber of Commerce worker threw away the broken Haida brand small magic harvester in his hand and complained to Cantona, "If it keeps breaking like this, we can't work at all." "That's right, Chairman. The one in my hand can't hold on much longer." A worker not far away who was still holding on said, with a bitter smile, "Listen, what kind of sound is coming from inside? I think it won't take long." Before his voice fell, the small magic harvester in his hand suddenly released a strange white light. The light disappeared and the sound disappeared, becoming motionless. Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. That worker gave a sigh and let go of his hand. He came in front of Cantona and shook his head as he said, "Chairman, I can't keep doing this. This damn Haida brand magic harvester, it's simply a pile of trash." "That's right. Even if it's not broken, its efficiency can't compare to the Shinfei brand magic harvester. Not to mention that we've been using the Shinfei brand magic harvesters for 3 years now, and not a single one is broken. At most, there are some small problems." "That's right. The Shinfei brand magic harvester is so easy to use. It's not as easy to break as this damn Haida brand magic harvester. Chairman, it's better to use the Shinfei brand magic harvester. Otherwise, we can't keep doing this." That's right. Chairman, take out the Shinfei brand magic harvester. Why don't you use the good one and use this pile of trash? The chairman is worried about the city lord manor's rules. Bullshit rules. We use them ourselves. How can the city lord manor control us? That's hard to say. Cantona knit his brows and looked at the entrance of Mexilin village. He found that there was a person riding a bicycle that was quickly approaching the village. Seeing that person ride to the edge of the field, Cantona and the other workers came forward to greet him. "Hey, Makarov, why are you only back now? Didn't I tell you to take the bus and come back quickly? Why are you riding a bicycle?" Cantona anxiously asked. Makarov put down the bicycle and spread his hands with a bitter smile. "The price of the bus has increased again, so I thought it wasn't worth it. Then again, this place isn't that far from the city, so I rode the bicycle." The price increased again. Everyone was stunned. Didn't the price increase just last month? Now it's increasing again? How much is it now? 30 silver coins for a trip. Makarov said with a sigh. It's 60 silver coins for a round trip. Don't you think it's a loss to take the bus? Damn, it only increased to 20 silver coins last month, and it's suddenly increased to 30 silver coins this month? Is this crazy? It's this expensive, only a ghost would ride it. Damn, I knew that after the First and Carriage Company withdrew from the city's public transport system, this thing would definitely increase in price. But I never thought that it would increase this much. It only cost 8 silver coins for a trip before, alright. The First and Carriage Company really is something. They were doing well. Why did they withdraw? Now we can't even afford to take the public transport. You can't blame the First and Carriage Company. Didn't you read the Banner Times? It was all because of the city lord manor's rules that forced them to withdraw, otherwise they would suffer a loss. Could it be that you think that the First and Carriage Company doesn't need to earn money? Even if the city Lord Manor gave the public transport system to that Lefay Chamber of Commerce, they can't increase the price this much, right? Can't they let people take the public transport? If you have the skills, why don't you say this to the Lord City Lord? Don't forget, the reason why we can't use the Sheen Fei brand agricultural magic machines is because of the city Lord Manor's rules. Damn, those fellows from the city Lord Manor are simply shameless. Shoo, don't speak nonsense. Cantona looked up and cut off everyone's discussion as he asked Makarov, let's not worry about the public transport for now. Makarov, did you ask the Haida Chamber of Commerce? What did they say? Makarov replied with a nod. I asked, and they said that they would send someone to take a look. Then they didn't say when they would send someone to fix it? Cantona asked. I also asked this, and they said that they could fix it, but they wanted us to pay for it. They still want to pay for it. Everyone was stunned. Is there a mistake? These agricultural magic machines have only been bought for less than a month. All right? They should still be under warranty, but they actually want us to pay for it? That's right. Isn't this too much? The new flyer promised to fix it for free for half a year and selectively for free for 3 years. This damn Haida Chamber of Commerce. They can't even fix it for free? Is this how they do business? All right, what kind of broken thing are you comparing the Haida Chamber of Commerce to the new flyer? Aren't you afraid that Chairman Su will be angry? What qualifications do they have to compare to the new flyer? Are they worthy? Then what do we do? Could it be that we just accept it? Seeing the doubtful gazes of his subordinates, Cantona tightly knit his brows. After thinking about it, he asked Makarov, did they say how much it would cost to fix it? They said it's hard to say. Makarov recalled the answer he received from the Haida Merchant Guild. Makarov recalled Makarov's words. If it's a small problem, we'll send it to them for 2 gold coins each time. If they send someone to fix it, it'll be 3 gold coins each time. If it's a big problem, it'll be 10 to 20 gold coins, depending on the situation. Hearing this answer, the surrounding workers couldn't help cursing again. Of the 20 Haida brand magic harvesters in the field, 15 of them were broken, and there wasn't a single one that seemed like a small problem. This meant that to fix all 15 of them, the Cantona Chamber of Commerce would have to pay close to 200 gold coins just to fix them. Chairman, I feel that even if these broken things are fixed, they'll break again soon. Moreover, with this efficiency, we won't be able to harvest that much. That's right. If we keep using them, we won't be able to make enough money to fix them. But if we don't use them, what will we do this year? What do we do? It's clear that we can't keep doing this. We won't do it if we can't keep doing it. This is the most basic business of our company. The group once again looked at Cantona. At this time, it was up to him as the chairman to make the decision. Cantona couldn't help giving a bitter laugh. How could he not be troubled right now? It was very clear that if they kept using these Haida brand magic machines, the final result would be that they wouldn't be able to make enough money to fix them. But if they didn't use them, it meant that they would give up on the most basic and stable business of harvesting farmland. The only way to solve this problem was to use the Sheen Fei brand magic machines again. But with the rules of the City Lord's Manor, he didn't dare go against them. If I knew this earlier, I would have listened to Old Man Sarkozy's advice and learned from the other companies, giving up on the Lampari Kingdom. Anyway, the kingdom has already been turned into a mess by those fellows. We can't stay here anymore. Cantona gave a sigh in his heart. After thinking about it, he shook his head. When he was prepared to have Makarov go to the Haida Chamber of Commerce and invite the other side's maintenance staff over, he looked up and found a pure black magic sedan driving over from the entrance of Mexilin Village. Chapter 554. This magic sedan looked very familiar. When he came a bit closer, Cantona recognized that this was Baron Rover's car. When he saw Baron Rover last time, he had specially shown off this magic sedan to Cantona. He said that it was hard to transport it from the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's magic sedan factory on the Black Rice Wasteland. Because the Lampari Kingdom's business department had restrictions on importing magic machines, it took him quite a bit of effort to transport this magic sedan across the border. The magic sedan quickly drove to the field, and when the door opened, it was Baron Rover who came out. Cantona was prepared to come forward, but Baron Rover's eyes were already locked onto him. He quickly came over and asked, "Hey, Cantona, didn't you say that you would harvest wheat for my territory today? Why are you still dawdling here?" Cantona gave a bitter laugh and pointed at the field. "There's a problem with the new machine I bought, so I'm thinking of what to do." "A new machine?" Baron Roth's eyes rolled as he reacted. Baron Rover's eyes lit up. "Is it the agricultural magic machine you bought from the Haida Chamber of Commerce last time?" I wanted to try using it here, and if there were no problems, I would go to other places to help with the harvest. But look, most of the small magic harvesters are broken, so I can't help harvest in your territory even if I wanted to," Cantona said in a helpless voice. Baron Rover curled his lips and said in a voice of disdain, "I already told you, this Haida Chamber of Commerce was made by the Kodak family. They don't know anything about this at all, so how good can the agricultural magic machines they make be? I have no other choice. The City Lord Manor has set a rule that only the Haida Chamber of Commerce's agricultural magic machines can be used in Bana City. The Business Department and Agriculture Department have also set this rule, so our company has no choice but to follow it," Cantona said with a sigh. Baron Rover glared at him. "Then what do we do? Your company can't help harvest this year? Who will harvest all that wheat in my field?" Cantona spread his hands and shook his head with a bitter smile. "I also want to help you, but I can't in this situation. Just wait for another 2 days. When the Haida Chamber of Commerce sends people to fix the small magic harvesters, I'll immediately send people to help you harvest." "Bullshit. I can wait, but the wheat in my field can't. If we don't harvest them, they will rot in the ground in a few days," Baron Rover said angrily. "There's no other way. Without agricultural magic machines, it's no use just sending people." "Who said that you don't have agricultural magic machines?" Baron Rover shook his head. "I don't believe that you threw away the Sheen Fei brand agricultural magic machines you bought before. Go, take them out, and come back with me now. If we move quickly, we might be able to finish harvesting today." "I'm afraid that won't work," Cantona said in a surprised voice. "The City Lord's Manor has strict rules. They can't use agricultural magic machines other than the Haida brand. Who cares about this stupid rule?" Baron Rover cursed. "Then again, my territory is private territory and isn't considered Bana City's land. I can use whatever brand of agricultural magic machines I want on this land. The City Lord Manor can't control me at all." Seeing that Cantona was still hesitating, Baron Rover pulled him back. "All right, stop wasting words. Quickly send people to take out the Sheen Fei brand agricultural magic machines you used before and try to harvest all the wheat in my field today." "That's right, Chairman. Since the Lord Baron has said this, we'll do this." "That's right, the Lord Baron is right. This is his private territory. The City Lord Manor can't control it. Chairman, quickly make a decision. If we move quickly, we shouldn't delay things." Hearing the workers say a few words and adding in Baron Rover's urging, Cantona thought for a bit before giving a strong nod. "All right, we'll do this. But Lord Baron, if the City Lord Manor comes looking for trouble, I'll be in charge of blocking them. They won't come looking for you, so you can be assured." Baron Rover cut Cantona off. "Don't think that much now. Quickly prepare, and we'll set off together. The servants of the territory are already prepared. They're just waiting for you." Seeing that Baron Rover was so confident, Cantona relaxed. He turned to wave his hand at his workers. "All right, brothers, go and prepare the tools. We're preparing to work." The workers cheered and scattered, heading to the warehouse the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had set up in Mexilin Village. Taking out the Sheen Fei brand agricultural magic machines that had been sealed because of the ban, everyone was filled with confidence. They had already used these Sheen Fei brand agricultural magic machines for over 2 years, almost 3 years, so they were very familiar with them. After using them for so long, the number of times there were problems with the Sheen Fei brand agricultural magic machines could be counted on one hand, so they were very assured when using them. They weren't as worried as when using the Haida brand agricultural magic machines, afraid that they would break at any moment. When everyone was ready, Baron Rover got into the magic sedan and led the way. The group of people went onto the road and headed towards Baron Rover's territory. Not long after, They arrived at Baron Rover's territory. Everyone didn't need any instructions as they started their agricultural magic machines. They drove into the fields that were already filled with golden wheat and began harvesting it. This scene happened every spring and autumn, so whether it was Baron Rover, Cantona, or the workers of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, they were all very familiar with it. Because they were using the familiar and easy-to-use Frestec brand agricultural magic machines, the efficiency of the workers instantly returned to normal. In just over an hour, they had harvested most of the wheat on Baron Rover's less than 10 hectares of farmland. Seeing that they could finish harvesting before the sun set, Baron Rover was in a very good mood. Although with the popularization of the agricultural magic machines and the widespread use of fertilizer, the grain yield of the Lampari Kingdom had greatly increased, reducing the pressure on grain for nobles like them. The first task they had to complete was to pay the grain tax each spring and autumn. If they couldn't even complete this task, they would be blamed by the royal parliament. The most serious thing was that they would lose their noble title, their privileges, or their private territory. So even if Baron Rover had enough money to buy enough grain to pay the tax, he still placed great importance on the farmland in his territory. No matter what, being able to solve the most important problem by farming was much more convenient. Cantona was also in a good mood. Seeing his subordinates skillfully harvest with the Shinfei brand agricultural magic machines, it meant that the Cantona Chamber of Commerce was still the Cantona Chamber of Commerce from before, and there weren't any problems. The only thing he needed to worry about was the damn rules of the city lord's manor. But what Cantona never thought was that the thing he was worried about would quickly become a reality. When the sun was close to the horizon and the wheat in Baron Rover's territory was about to be harvested, there was a medium-sized magic passenger car and two medium-sized transport magic cars that came from the road to Baron Rover's territory, stopping by the side of the field. When the car stopped, there were several men wearing the City Lord's Manor logo that jumped out of the magic passenger car. From the back of the two medium-sized transport magic cars, there were several dozen fully armed city guards that jumped out. Those men who looked like staff of the City Lord's Manor walked towards Baron Rover and Cantona. The several dozen city guards walked into the field and ordered the workers of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, who were using the agricultural magic machines, to stop. Seeing this, Baron Rover flew into a rage. He roared at the staff of the City Lord's Manor. "What do you want to do? This is my territory. How dare you act recklessly?" The leading staff member of the City Lord's Manor had a serious look as he said to Baron Rover with a serious look, "Baron Rover, we receive a report that there are people using agricultural magic machines that aren't of the designated brand to harvest on your territory. This goes against the rules of the City Lord's Manor, so we came to stop this." Bullshit. Baron Rover was furious. Baron Rover was filled with rage. "This is my territory. I can do whatever I want. What does the City Lord's Manor's rules matter to me? Based on what you care?" The staff member's expression didn't change. He reached into his chest and took out a document for Baron Rover. "This is the newest rule of the kingdom's royal parliament. In order for the spring planting to go smoothly, all the nobles of the kingdom are required to cooperate with the City Lord's Manor and follow the rules of the City Lord's Manor. Baron Rover, please cooperate with our work." Baron Rover took the document and found that it really was a decision of the royal parliament. So he was a bit surprised. Didn't the royal parliament always preach that nobles should have various privileges? Why did they suddenly change this time? Ignoring the confused Baron Rover on the side, the staff member looked at Cantona and waved his hand. "Do it." The city guards who had charged into the field immediately made their move. They drove away the Cantona Chamber of Commerce workers and reached out to control the agricultural magic machines. Based on their appearance, they were prepared to steal all the Shinfei brand agricultural magic machines. Cantona was shocked and angry, loudly asking the staff member, "What are you doing? Based on what are you taking our things?" "Your things?" The staff member gave a cold laugh. "Your Cantona Chamber of Commerce has openly violated the rules of the City Lord's Manor, using other brands of agricultural magic machines. Other than confiscating the other brands of agricultural magic machines, your Cantona Chamber of Commerce will also be investigated by the City Lord's Manor. I'm warning you, if you don't cooperate, I have the right to take you in right now." Cantona was filled with rage, but he was only a commoner. He didn't dare go against the people sent by the city lord's manor, so he could only look at Baron Rover for help. Being provoked by the expression on Cantona's face and being angered by the staff member's arrogant attitude, Baron Rover couldn't care less as he roared out, "All of you stop for me. This is my private territory. You have to get my permission to do anything here. I don't agree to you doing this right now. All of you stop for me." The city guards stopped as expected, but they all looked at the staff member. The staff member looked at Baron Rover and chuckled. "Lord Baron, please take care of yourself." Baron Rover's neck stiffened. "Who do you think you are, daring to talk to me like this? If you have the skills, have City Lord Camadou talk to me." The staff member shook his head and ignored Baron Rover, waving his hand at the city guards again. The city guards moved again when they saw this, and the Cantona Chamber of Commerce workers finally couldn't help charging forward. These Xinfei brand agricultural magic machines had been used by them for several years, so they already had feelings for them. Now that they had been stolen by someone, how could they take it? Not to mention that Baron Rover was supporting them. So if they didn't take this chance to steal them back, when the city guards really stole the Xinfei brand agricultural magic machines, how could they take them back? Both sides began to argue. Although the city guards were ordered to come, they didn't dare make any heavy moves, so both sides were entangled. "I'm warning you. Quickly have him stop. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Baron Rover pointed at the Cantona Chamber of Commerce workers and the city guards in the field, speaking to the staff member in a sharp voice. The staff member gave a cold laugh. "Baron Rover, are you openly going against the city lord's manor and the royal parliament?" "I don't care that much. I just know that this is my private territory. I have the final say here. If you don't hurry." There was a pitiful cry that suddenly cut off Baron Rover's words. Everyone looked in the direction of the pitiful cry in a daze, seeing a Cantona Chamber of Commerce worker fall in the bucket of a small magic harvester in the field. There was a spike that pierced through the back of the worker's neck and came out from the front. Blood instantly dyed the entire field red. Chapter 555. King Eric forcefully pinched his forehead, feeling like his head was about to explode from the pain. The reason for this was that 1, he hadn't had a good night's sleep in several months, and 2, it was because of the large pile of documents in front of him. Although there seemed to be many documents, they were all talking about the same thing. It was the bloody conflict that had occurred in Banda City before. If it was in a normal sense, this bloody conflict was just an accident and wasn't worth paying attention to. It was impossible for a respected king like him to have a headache over it. But the problem was that the meaning behind this bloody conflict was too complicated and too important. It created a backlash from the people of the Lampari Kingdom, which was why it became this serious. This bloody conflict was very simple on the surface. It was just the Banta City guards killing a commoner while carrying out their mission. This matter had happened many times in the history of the Lampari Kingdom. They had always sealed the mouth of the commoners before, and at most they could take out a bit of money to settle it. However, as soon as this matter happened, it was immediately revealed. In a short period of time, it attracted the attention and reaction of everyone in the kingdom. The main reason for this bloody conflict was that the city guards were following the rules of the city lord manor. They were stopping a company from using agricultural magic machines that weren't part of the rules to harvest. After this matter happened, almost all the newspapers in the Lampuri Kingdom had reported it in detail. There were even many newspapers that followed up on this matter, clearly writing about both sides of the conflict and the inside story, letting everyone know the reason for this conflict. It was because they knew the reason that countless people in the kingdom had such a large reaction. Did Banta City's City Lord Manor have the right to set the rules that they had to use a specific brand of agricultural magic machines when harvesting? This question was the core of everyone's doubts. To most people, the main goal of harvesting was to quickly and smoothly finish the harvest. As long as they could harvest the grain in the field, it didn't matter what brand of agricultural magic machine was used. Not to mention that there were only 2 brands of agricultural magic machines in the Lampari Kingdom. One was the Xinfei brand, which was used by the Cantona Chamber of Commerce in this conflict. Because it was confiscated by the city guards, it caused this bloody conflict. The other was the Haida brand. Not only was it the brand that Banta City used, it was also the brand that the Magic Machine Industry Management Department recommended all the cities in the kingdom use. At the same time, the Haida brand agricultural magic machine was a brand designated by the Agriculture Department. Before the spring plowing this year, it had already been promoted to many cities in the Lampari Kingdom and was recommended to all cities. Although the Business Department and the Agriculture Department didn't force people to use the Haida brand agricultural magic machines like Banta City, since the Business Department and the Agriculture Department both recommended it, most of the cities in the kingdom changed their Xinfei brand agricultural magic machines to the Haida brand. This wasn't a big deal at first, but after the bloody conflict in Banta City, there were many voices of opposition that came out. There were two main reasons for the opposition. One of them was that no matter if it was the mayor's mansion, the Magic Machine Industry Administration Department, the Business Department, or even the Agriculture Department, they couldn't force a certain product to be used. If people want to buy something, they have to do it voluntarily. It would be a violation of basic principles to enforce the rules. The other point was mainly the quality of the Haida brand agricultural magic machines. According to the news from the newspapers of the various cities, the quality of the Haida brand agricultural magic machines really couldn't be praised. The reason for this bloody conflict in Banta City was because the quality of the Haida brand agricultural magic machines was too poor. Most of the 20 small Haida brand magic harvesters the Cantona Chamber of Commerce had bought were broken, so they were forced to violate the rules of the City Lord Manor and use the Xinfei brand agricultural magic machines. The City Lord Manor wanted to enforce the rules, so they had a conflict with the workers of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, causing this tragedy. If the quality of the Haida brand agricultural magic machines was a bit better, how could this have happened? Moreover, other than Banta City, the performance of the Haida brand agricultural magic machines in the other cities was also very bad. The newspapers of the various cities reported that there were all kinds of problems with the Haida brand agricultural magic machines in their cities, making it impossible to harvest normally. There were many cities that had problems with the Haida brand agricultural magic machines, so they had no choice but to use the Xinfei brand agricultural magic machines again, making it in time for the spring harvest. Otherwise, the grain yield of the Lampari Kingdom this spring harvest would have been greatly affected because of this. In most of the newspapers, there were strong condemnations of the Haida Chamber of Commerce. Countless people questioned the Haida Chamber of Commerce. Why was it that after receiving the complete technology from the Frestac Chamber of Commerce and receiving the support of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department, the Haida Chamber of Commerce could only make such low-quality agricultural magic machines? Not to mention comparing it to the Xinfei brand agricultural magic machines, they should at least be able to use them normally, right? But there were some newspapers that raised another point of view. It was an indisputable fact that the quality of the Haida brand agricultural magic machines was bad, so of course the newspapers wouldn't forcefully explain it. They threw the problem onto New Flyer, saying that it was because New Flyer didn't give the technology to the Haida Chamber of Commerce that the quality of the Haida brand agricultural magic machines wasn't good. New Flyer didn't give the technology to the department and chose to break off the cooperation, leaving a mess for the department and the 10 companies represented by the Haida Chamber of Commerce. The fact that these 10 companies were able to produce complete magic machines was already a testament to their hard work. In order to support the development of these 10 companies, making better and better magic machines in the future, allowing the people of the Lampari Kingdom to break free from the restrictions of the Xinfei brand magic machines, I hope that everyone can be patient with these 10 companies and support them. This point of view was naturally cursed by countless people. It was clearly the department that wanted to steal the large cake of the magic machine market from the Frestac Chamber of Commerce. But after stealing the technology, they couldn't do it themselves, and now they were blaming the Frestac Chamber of Commerce. This was clearly acting like a whore trying to build a chastity. There was an article in the Lampuri Weekly that pushed the anger directed at the 10 companies to the peak. This article was an interview the Lampury Weekly had with the chief magic mechanical engineer of the New Flyer Magic Machine Development Center, Dwarf Canby. In the interview, Canby said that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce had already given all the technology to the 10 companies of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department and didn't hide anything. The quality of the magic machines they produced couldn't compare to the Xinfei brand magic machines. Other than the fact that the craftsmanship of the 10 companies couldn't compare to the New Flyer, there was another important reason, which was that they cut corners in order to save costs. Take the small magic harvester that caused such a large problem. The Xinfei brand small magic harvester used a special super hard steel refined by New Flyer, which cost over 200 gold coins per ton. As for the Haida brand small magic harvester, it used a low-quality steel refined by one of the 10 companies, the Detroit Chamber of Commerce. Whether it was in terms of hardness, toughness, wear resistance, or corrosion resistance, they were all inferior to the special steel used by the Xinfei brand small magic harvester. The price per ton was estimated to be no more than 50 gold coins. The most common problem with the Haida brand small magic harvester was that the parts were damaged, and the most serious part was the shaft breaking, which was because the quality of the steel was too low. In the report published in the Lampury Weekly, there was a list of detailed data given by Canby. It compared the Xinfei brand small magic harvester to the Haida brand small magic harvester. Although the data was very boring, it was very clear. Comparing it, there was no doubt that the Haida brand small magic harvester was seriously cutting corners, so of course the quality couldn't be good. When this conclusion came out, other than a few newspapers that doubted the data given by Canby, no one said a single good word for the Haida brand. So in less than a month after the bloody conflict in Bana City, there was a wave of activities in the Lampury Kingdom to boycott the Haida Chamber of Commerce. All the cities in the kingdom announced that they would no longer use the agricultural magic machines produced by the Haida Chamber of Commerce. After this, these activities developed into boycotting the magic machines produced by the 10 companies of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. To everyone, they were also one of the 10 companies of the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. If the Haida Chamber of Commerce's magic machines were this bad, the magic machines produced by the other companies would be the same. Before this, there were already many voices of opposition to the quality of the magic machines produced by the other merchant guilds. Now, they were just using this opportunity to expand their influence. The documents in front of King Eric were documents sent by the city lord manors of many cities. They stated that they wanted the Magic Machine Industry Management Department to inspect the 10 companies and strictly control the quality of the magic machines they produced. Otherwise, there would be many cities in the kingdom that would refuse to import the magic machines produced by these companies. Among these documents, there were some that were even more direct. For example, Seoul City City Lord, Count Samo, had directly announced that Seoul City would no longer be managed by the Magic Machine Industry Management Department and would support the development of the city's magic machine companies. There were 11 other cities that made the same choice as Seoul City, taking up a third of the Lampury Kingdom. If the other cities that sent documents were included, there wasn't a single city in the Lampury Kingdom that still supported the Magic Machine Industry Management Department. Looking over the documents in front of him, King Eric felt his head hurt a bit more. He couldn't help knitting his brows and cursing in a low voice before feeling a deep sense of helplessness. Although he was the Lampury Kingdom's king in name, there were very few things he could control. Not to mention changing the attitudes of the cities and the nobles that protested. Even if it was the Magic Machine Industry Management Department, the Business Department, and the Agriculture Department that were under his command, he couldn't influence a single one of them. If 70 was the king back then, and she had the support of Sue, E, and the New Flyer, wouldn't she be much better off than me? Hearing the familiar footsteps of Duke Stagg outside the door, King Eric revealed a bitter smile. Chapter 556. Your Majesty, this is actually an opportunity. Duke Stagg had the same smile, looking like he had a card up his sleeve as he spoke. Opportunity. King Eric looked at Duke Stag with a confused gaze. The situation in the kingdom was already this bad, and he actually said that this was an opportunity? What opportunity? Your Majesty, did you forget? Since Her Highness 70 gave up on fighting for the throne with you. Although it is much simpler for you, the people in the kingdom who oppose you have hidden themselves because of this. When they didn't do anything before, we couldn't distinguish them, and it was even harder to do anything to them. Now that they have jumped out because of this, isn't this a good chance to deal with them? Seeing the dangerous smile on Duke Stag's face, King Eric felt a chill in his heart. This Duke Stag, who looked normal on the surface and even had a harmless smile, was actually very ruthless in his heart. Perhaps the situation was a good chance for him to get rid of his enemies, so he wouldn't show any mercy. But for him, as the king in the Lampari kingdom, was this really a good chance? If it was said that before he took the throne, Eric only had a simple understanding of the kingdom situation. Now that he had been the king for close to a year, he had a rather deep understanding of the kingdom situation. Before this, he was very dissatisfied that the new flyer wasn't willing to support him taking the throne. He thought that once he took the throne, he would definitely take care of the new flyer. He had indeed done this. Although the new flyer had been targeted by the nobles, they had all received his support. He didn't feel that there was a problem at first, but as time passed, losing the new flyer had an effect on Bana City and even the Lampari kingdom. Even if there wasn't this bloody conflict, Eric had already learned about the influence of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce through the various reports from the various regions. This influence, most of the time, was positive and positive. Eric could even conclude that the Frestec Chamber of Commerce played an important role in Banta City's development over the past few years. The Lampuri Kingdom's financial situation had clearly improved over the past few years, which was greatly related to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. If he stood in the position of the Lampari Kingdom's king, looking at the entire Lampari Kingdom, Eric should be like his father, Lampuri 13th, firmly supporting the new flyer. But since things had reached this point, it was impossible for him to stop. Moreover, the 10 companies of the nobles that supported him had already pushed the new flyer out of the Lampari Kingdom, so it was impossible for him to keep the new flyer. The large nobles that supported him, led by the Stag family, had already stolen all the magic machine market from the new flyer through these 10 companies, obtaining large benefits from this. Even if Eric was the most honorable king of the Lampuri Kingdom, he definitely wouldn't dare go against this group of stubborn conservative nobles who controlled almost the entire Lampuri Kingdom. Not to mention anything else. Just the Stag family that Duke Stag represented was something that Eric didn't have any confidence in dealing with. Seeing that Eric was silent, Duke Stag didn't guess his true thoughts and thought that he was just hesitating. He revealed a smile and continued, "Your Majesty, I know that you are worried that this will cause chaos in the kingdom, but I've already prepared a plan. But don't worry, I already have a series of perfect plans for these things. I can slowly and effectively get rid of those who oppose you. I guarantee that there won't be any mistakes." Eric gave a long sigh in his heart, knowing that he didn't have any leeway to oppose this. When Duke Stag came to tell him about this matter, perhaps he was already implementing this plan, and he was just here to inform him. Anyway, he had all the power in the kingdom in his hands, and even the royal guards in the royal palace only listened to his orders. So what did Eric's opinion matter? After thinking for a bit, Eric gave a slight nod. "All right, we'll do, as the Duke says." Duke Stag looked like he already expected this. He revealed a faint smile and gave Eric a bow. "Then, Your Majesty, please rest well. I'll be leaving first." Seeing Duke Stag leave, Eric's face sunk. He forcefully clenched his right hand, and the pen that was as thick as his pinky broke in half with a gotcha sound. Hashtag the chaos in Bana City didn't affect the Principality of Constantine that was several hundred kilometers away at all. It was different from the bloody conflict that shocked the entire Lampuri Kingdom during Banta City's spring harvest, which slowed down the entire spring harvest. The Frestec farm had over 100,000 hectares of farmland, and they had already finished harvesting half a month ago. Compared to last year, because the new flyer had upgraded their agricultural magic machines and put in new medium sized agricultural magic machines. Their harvesting efficiency was much higher than last year. Even if there were 20,000 more hectares of farmland than last year, the total harvest time was 3 days less than last year. The new generation of Xinfei agricultural magic machines naturally attracted praise. Not only did Lord Wine order several dozen sets from the new flyer, even the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Mirando Duchy, and the Drake Duchy that was over 1,000 kilometers away had sent representatives to the new flyer, adding up to close to 1,000 sets. Just with these orders, the total value was over 3 million gold coins. This represented the new flyer's first large sale of household magic machines this year. As for the military magic machines, since they agreed to exchange them for territory from Lord Wine, the new flyer had greatly reduced their sales volume. They only sold to some companies that were close to them, so the total value was less than 1 million gold coins, which was a bit of a decrease. However, if the value of the military magic machine supplied to Lord Wine was included, the total price of the military magic machines would exceed 2 million gold coins. Adding in the various household magic machines and a small number of production magic machines that were sold in the first half of the year, the new flyer had sold a shocking 7 million gold coins in less than 5 months of the year. With the high profit margin of the new flyer from this 7 million gold coins in sales, the new flyer had a net profit of over 3 million gold coins. This surprised Sui a bit. He thought that because the new flyer had been rebuilding their production base and opening up the market, the company's sales and profits would have greatly decreased. But based on the current situation, although it had decreased quite a bit compared to last year, going from a net profit of over 4,300,000 gold coins in the first 5 months of last year to just over 3 million gold coins, it wasn't that much of a decrease. Not only was it acceptable, it even surprised Sui and the high-level members of the company. Being able to earn such a high profit in this situation, it was enough to prove that the world's pursuit of magic machines hadn't decreased at all. Although they were forced out of the Lampari Kingdom market, with the development of the new flyer, they had opened up the markets of many other countries and regions outside the Lampari Kingdom, so the prospects were even wider. In the Kingdom of Ruhr, the Mirando Duchy, the Drake Duchy, and even the Sac Kingdom, the Xinfei brand magic machines represented the trend and the most advanced products. Countless families were proud to have a Xinfei brand magic machine. With the current trend, it wouldn't be long before the new flyer would be like the Lampari Kingdom, taking most of the magic machine market in these countries. Why didn't it take all the markets? Of course, it was because Sui wanted to leave some space for the other companies that produced magic machines. But for Sui, during this time, the most important thing for him wasn't how much sales and profits the new flyer earned or how much money he earned, but rather how much money he spent. Accurately speaking, it was how much money he spent on Duke Stantine. Even if Lord Wine said it very easily, transferring his territory to Sui, who was actually a foreigner, it wasn't easy to get approval from Duke Stantine. Since signing the contract with Lord Wine, in just a short month, Sui and Duke Stantine had met 7 times, spending over 1 million gold coins before finally settling this matter. Today was the day Duke Stantine was conferring a medal on Sui. According to the rules of the Principality of Constantine, or rather the rules of the signs, if one wasn't a noble, they definitely couldn't have private territory. So to transfer a piece of land from Lord Wine to Sui, it required a very complicated and troublesome procedure that took several circles. First, Lord Wine declared that he didn't have the ability to manage all the territories under his name, so he took the initiative to hand over Sui's territory to the duchy. Then Duke Stantine gave a special commendation to the new flyer, commending the new flyer's outstanding contribution to the development of the Principality of Constantine. As the chairman, Sui's contribution was great, so he gave Sui the honorary citizenship of the Principality of Constantine, as well as the honorary title of Lord of the Principality of Constantine. After this, Duke Stantine gave the land Lord Wine had given to Sui as an honorary lord, turning it into his private territory. After going through this process, this piece of land was finally recognized as Sui's private territory. After receiving the title badge from Duke Stantine and the private territory bestowed certificate, it meant that from this moment onwards, the territory was considered Su Yi's private territory. The Principality of Constantine and the Lampari Kingdom were different. As long as Su Yi had enough power to protect and manage this private territory, then in this territory, he would be the king. Chapter 557. Although when he was in the Lampari Kingdom, Su Yi had the Falling Rain Valley as his private territory, he wasn't used to being a lord. He only treated the Falling Rain Valley as a production base for the new flyer, so he naturally didn't have the awareness of being a lord. Moreover, because of the situation, he gave up his identity as a noble and handed over his private territory, so he didn't have any feelings for the private territory of a noble. But it was different this time. The Principality of Constantine was completely different from the Lampari Kingdom. Duke Stantine represented the Principality of Constantine and didn't have any restrictions on the nobles in the Principality of Constantine. So Su Yi had a private territory here, which was equivalent to his personal territory. According to Lord Wine's words, in this territory, no matter what Su Yi did, no one would care. Even if he killed people and set fires, no one would say anything about it, because no one had the qualifications. Su Yi naturally wouldn't kill people and set fires in his own territory, but he needed this feeling of freedom, because only like this could he plan his territory according to his own thoughts. It wouldn't be like his plan for the Falling Rain Valley, which was limited and imperfect. Moreover, this private territory was over 240,000 hectares, which was over 2,000 square kilometers. It was several dozen times larger than the 10 square kilometers of the Falling Rain Valley, so it was much more spacious to plan. Of course, he was also very clear that this degree of freedom was built on the strength that he possessed. If he didn't have enough strength to protect this territory, then when needed, he believed that Lord Wine wouldn't hesitate to swallow this territory back into his stomach. So after officially becoming the lord of this territory, Su Yi immediately reorganized the guards of a new flyer, turning the 500 most elite guards into his personal guards. Just like Agnes said, even the proud elven warriors of the company didn't have any resistance to becoming his personal guards. Instead, many elven warriors revealed clear joy when they heard that they would become Su Yi's personal guards. Su Yi asked the elven guard captain Ferio about this, and Ferio replied that this was Elder Alicia's idea. Moreover, he was a human recognized by all the elves of the Night Song tribe, so becoming his personal guards didn't mean any shame to the elven warriors. This was because they all recognized Su Yi and felt that Su Yi was the person who changed the fate of the Night Song tribe. Even if they offered their lives for Su Yi, there wouldn't be any problems. On the contrary, being the guards of the new flyer was a bit hard for them to accept. This was because the new flyer didn't completely belong to Su Yi alone, so it made them feel like they were working for a human other than Su Yi. As for the dwarven warriors, naturally, they didn't have any doubts. Even when Su Yi revealed that he wanted to form a personal guard, because of the limited number of people, the 13 dwarven tribes that moved to the Principality of Constantine with a new flyer held a large competition. They claimed that they wanted to select the most elite dwarven warriors to join Su Yi's personal guards. You're asking about human guards? Was there need to ask? The treatment of the new flyer's guards was already this good, so the treatment of Su Yi's personal guards would be even better. Once they heard that Su Yi was recruiting private guards, not to mention the Frestac Chamber of Commerce's human guards breaking their heads to get in, even the elite human warriors from other places heard this news through various channels and all rushed over. However, Su Yi didn't want people he didn't know to mix into his personal guards. Therefore, he selected a portion of these people to join the new flyer's guards. What surprised Su Yi was that when Elder Lysania heard that Su Yi wanted to form a personal guard, she also sent over 200 elven warriors from the Moonshadow tribe, saying that they wanted to join Su Yi's personal guard. After careful consideration, Su Yi tactfully rejected Elder Lysania's good intentions. In the end, Elder Lysania didn't let the 200 elven warriors from the Moonshadow tribe return. Instead, she stuffed them into the New Flyers Guards. In the end, although Su-yi took away 500 of the most elite warriors from the New Flyers Guards, the New Flyers Guards increased from 1,200 to 1,500. Of course, because of the run-in and because the new soldiers weren't familiar with the high-end military magic machines of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. In terms of battle strength, they couldn't compare to the previous 1,200 guards. However, Su-yi wasn't worried about this. The beastmen of the Black Rice Wasteland were like weeds. They had extremely tenacious vitality. No matter how many times they were cleaned up, there would still be some ignorant beastmen appearing. These beastmen couldn't pose any threat to the large-scale and heavily guarded base of the Black Rice Wasteland, but it was good for the new guards of the company to practice with. Since he received the award and the territory, there were a series of things that kept Su-yi busy. When he finally finished arranging the matters of the personal guard and the company's guards, as well as planning the development of a new flyer, it had already been several months. After entering July, the arrival of summer made the weather of the Principality of Constantine even hotter. Su-yi finally obtained some free time during this time. When he finally had some free time, he turned his attention to Bana City and the Lampari Kingdom, but he found that the situation in the Lampari Kingdom had greatly changed once again. In these few months, there were large and small nobles in the Lampari Kingdom that had been stripped of their noble status by the royal parliament, taking away all their property and territory. The royal parliament gave all kinds of strange reasons. There was even a viscount who had killed a cow in his territory, breaking the laws of the kingdom, so he was stripped of his noble status by the royal parliament. It had to be known, even in the Lampari Kingdom, where it wasn't easy to farm and cattle were important, it was a trivial matter for a noble to kill a cow in their territory. Even if this went against the laws of the kingdom, how could the royal parliament let the nobles who had special rights be punished by the law? Not to mention that the Lampari Kingdom had already popularized the agricultural magic machines. So cows were only used in a few places, so they no longer had an important position like before. Even the various dishes made from beef had already been placed on the menus of the various restaurants in the Lampari Kingdom. In this situation, a noble would actually be stripped of his noble status for killing a cow and be imprisoned for breaking the laws of the kingdom, being severely punished by the laws of the kingdom. This was simply a joke. However, this was the reality of what was happening in the Lampari Kingdom. Other than many small nobles who didn't have much power, there were even 2 large nobles who were punished. Not only did these 2 large nobles have large territories, they were also the city lords of their own cities, so they had power that couldn't be underestimated. However, when the Lampari Kingdom's royal parliament and the royal parliament worked together, these 2 large nobles were caught without being able to resist at all. There is no news of them since then. After learning this news, Su-yi was filled with joy. It was a good thing that he had left the Lampari Kingdom. Otherwise, this time, he would have been one of the nobles caught. Now that he was the lord of the Principality of Constantine, no one dared to catch him without distinguishing right from wrong. At the same time, he felt it was a bit strange. Most of the nobles that were caught had supported Seveni taking the throne. When Eric became the king, Su-yi thought that he would find an excuse to take care of the nobles that didn't support him. The so-called ruler had his own ministers. This wasn't a strange thing. However, Eric didn't do this, and the Lampari Kingdom had been peaceful for close to a year. Su-yi thought that this page would be over, but he never thought that Eric would suddenly make a move. Because of the bloody conflict in Bana City, the Lampari Kingdom was very tense. There were many people who supported Her Highness Seveni and opposed Eric taking the throne who used this chance to voice their opposition to King Eric, but Eric chose to make a move at this time. Didn't he feel that this was too conspicuous? Doing this, he would take this chance to take care of the nobles that opposed him. But wasn't King Eric worried that this would anger the nobles of the Lampari Kingdom and cause even more chaos? Su-yi didn't understand the other nobles, but at least he knew that Baron Hannes was very dissatisfied with this situation. In the Anvilmar Times and the Lampuri Weekly, they had very direct attacks on what was happening in the Lampari Kingdom. Although he didn't say that King Eric was in the wrong, There was no doubt that the meaning was revealed between the lines. Although the editor-in-chief of the Anvilmar Times and the Lampury Weekly had always been Baron Hannes, they represented the position of the nobles behind him. Now that these two newspapers had published such a clear-cut and sharply worded article, it was enough to prove that the powerful nobles behind Baron Hannes were extremely dissatisfied. However, what really caused a stir in the Lampury Kingdom, or accurately speaking, what shocked all the nobles in the Lampury Kingdom, was not the articles in these two newspapers, but rather a piece of news. Duke Stag's son, who had the right to inherit the Stag family, Leslie Stag, had been expelled by Duke Stag. Chapter 558. Sui looked at Viscount Leslie sitting in front of him with a relaxed smile, feeling a bit angry and a bit amused. "I say, Leslie, didn't you say that you would go all out to fight for the family's inheritance and then control the Stag family? But what happened in the end? Why have you been kicked out of the family?" No. You have to understand something. I wasn't kicked out of the family, but rather I took the initiative to leave. Viscount Leslie stretched out a finger and shook it. The two are very different. Don't make a mistake. He couldn't help smiling as he said, "Is there a difference? In short, you've been forced to leave the Stag family, and you can't even stay in the Lampury Kingdom, so you can only come to me. I say, does Duke Stag have to be this cruel to you? You are still his blood-related son, no matter what. For a large noble like my father, a blood-related son isn't as important as you think." Viscount Leslie, all right, when he was kicked out of the Stag family, he was also stripped of his noble status by the royal parliament, so he couldn't be called a viscount anymore. Leslie didn't look disappointed at all. Rather, he looked very relaxed. It was like being kicked out of the family by his father was something worth being happy about. "Of course it's worth being happy about," Leslie said with a faint smile. "Staying in that house, breathing in that suffocating air every day and watching a group of people led by fathers scheming against other people, I've been very tired of it for a long time. I wanted to work hard to change this family, but father had already seen through my thoughts and didn't give me a chance at all." "You're not disappointed?" He was a bit confused. "Now that you've been kicked out, wouldn't you have a chance to change the Stag family in the future?" "If there's no chance, there's no chance." Leslie gave a shrug. "Father and the people of the family have already chosen the path they want to take. Since I don't have the ability to change them, I can only leave. Actually, this is also good because in the end, I'm still a member of the Stag family. As long as I'm alive, this family will still exist. As for what will become of father and the others, that has nothing to do with me." He knit his brows as he looked at Leslie. He suddenly thought of the history books he had read on Earth before. In history, there were many large families that in order to avoid their entire family being destroyed because of single choice, they would have their family's juniors choose different lords to support. In this way, even if one side was defeated, there would always be one side that would survive and have the opportunity to continue developing the family. At the very least, they would be able to continue the bloodline of the family. Duke Stag had chased Leslie out of the Stag family. Although this was because Leslie's political views didn't match his and the Stag family's political views, perhaps he was also thinking about this. However, Sui couldn't bring himself to ask this question. After pondering for a moment, he asked, "All right then, now that you can't survive in the Lampury Kingdom, are you looking for something to do here?" I've always been interested in the magic machines you've been researching. Other than that, I heard that your company had developed something good, so I can take a look." Leslie replied. "What did you like?" He asked in a curious voice. "If I didn't make a mistake, last time you told Hannes that thing was going to go to sea today. Come, take me to see it." Leslie stood up and walked out the door. He was stunned. "So you liked it?" Looking at Leslie's back in confusion, he shook his head and stood up to follow him. When he walked out the door, there was a small figure that swayed as she walked over. She threw herself at and grabbed his leg. Dad, hug." He leaned over and opened his arms to hug Freya, forcefully kissing her little face. Freya was already a year and 3 months old and had just learned how to walk. She liked running around the manor during this time. He liked playing with her on the grass when he was free, So even if he didn't spend that much time with her, she was very close to Su. Being poked by Su Yi's beard, Freya gave a childish laugh. Seeing Su Yi teasing Freya, Leslie took out a red jade pendant from his chest and handed it over. Come, Freya, take this. Uncle Leslie left in a hurry this time and didn't prepare a better gift for you. You won't blame me, right? With Su Yi's current relationship with Leslie, he didn't need to be polite. Su Yi didn't say anything and allowed Leslie to put this expensive jade pendant into Freya's little hands. He turned to ask him, speaking of this, Leslie, I suddenly feel that the reason Duke Stagg drove you out is because you still aren't willing to get married, right? Leslie's expression changed as he looked at Su Yi and said with a cold snort, What? You're married now and have a daughter, so you're rushing me like those annoying fellows? Su Yi gave a shrug. I'm too lazy to rush you. This is your private matter. I just feel that Duke Stagg hopes that you can strengthen the Stagg family bloodline. If you bring a girl back now, he might be happy and let you return to the family. I'm not a breeding stallion. Leslie snorted. Leslie gave a snort. Moreover, I said it just now, I chose to leave and wasn't driven out by him. So there's a difference. Su Yi treated it as him being stubborn. So he shook his head and didn't say anything else. Seeing that Freya wasn't willing to get off him, he told Liz, who had been in charge of following Freya, to drive the magic sedan over. After getting the magic sedan, with Leslie, they headed to the wharf by the sea under the cliff of the manor. This wharf had been expanded compared to when New Flyer came to the Principality of Constantine to open the Shinfei farm. It had gone from 3 wharves to 7 wharves. Other than the wharves, there was a dock that was over 100,000 square meters not far away. By the shore of the dock, there were over 100 large and small boats parked there. Other than a few wooden boats, the rest were New Flyer's magic boats. Of course, there were big and small magic boats. The small ones could only seat 5 people at most, which was around the same as the smallest wooden boat. The bigger ones were over 10 meters long and 4 to 5 meters wide. It wasn't a problem for them to seat several dozen people or to equip some goods. Su Yi carried Freya out of the magic sedan and pointed at the magic boats in front of them. He asked Leslie, who came out on the other side, Did you come for them? Of course not. Leslie shook his head. He looked at Su Yi before suddenly saying with a smile, All right, Su, Annis has already told me everything, so you don't need to hide it like it's a secret. Quickly tell me, when will your new magic boat launch ceremony begin? I'm waiting to see it. That fellow Hannes really can't be relied on. Su Yi rolled his eyes. He gave Freya to Liz to hold and headed to the dock in the distance. There was a group of people wearing New Flyer clothes working in the dock, as if they were arranging something. Seeing Su Yi come over, Kennard, who was in charge of directing, came forward. Sir Chairman, it's all prepared. We're waiting for you to announce it. After saying this, Kennard gave a nod to Leslie, who was standing behind him. The two of them came from large noble families in Anvilmar City, so naturally they knew each other. Through their relationship with Su Yi, the two of them were even more familiar with each other. Su Yi looked at the timer on the side and found that it was close to the scheduled time, so he gave a nod. All right, since everything is prepared, then let's begin. Kennard replied before leaving to give the final orders. Not long after, a waterway leading to the endless sea was opened in the dock. As the gates slowly opened, a sharp bow slowly sailed out from the covered dock. Not long after, the entire figure was revealed, bathing in the sunlight. Looking up, Leslie couldn't help taking in a cold breath. Although he knew from Hannes that the New Flyer's magic boat was quite big, he never would have thought that it would be this big. Looking at it from the water, the part of the magic boat that was above the water was over 5 meters tall. After the entire magic boat was revealed, one could see that it was over 50 meters long. Although because of the angle, Leslie couldn't see how wide the magic boat was. Based on its appearance, it should be a shocking 20 meters wide. Since he set his goal, Leslie had learned a lot about ships. He knew that in the history of signs, there had never been such a large ship before. What was even more shocking and unbelievable was that this magic boat was completely made of steel. This kind of giant magic boat was completely made of steel, so it could be imagined how heavy it was. With such a terrifying weight, it could actually float on the water. This simply subverted Leslie's common sense. Seeing the thick layer of steel around the magic boat, Leslie couldn't help being shocked in his heart. This magic boat, it was simply an iron fortress that could move freely on the sea. If one drove this magic boat on the sea, they would definitely be invincible. Chapter 559. Many people were confused by Leslie's plans for his future. He was even more surprised. Because Leslie actually wanted to sail the endless seas, his dream was to become the overlord of the seas. Hearing Leslie's idea, he almost scolded him for thinking too much. Overlord of the seas? He couldn't even touch the seas. How could he be an overlord? Because of the limitations of this world's technology, they couldn't make large ships that were strong enough to sail the seas at all. In the history of signs, only the Kamla Empire had tried this once. They had built 20 giant wooden ships and formed a fleet to sail the seas, claiming that they wanted to explore the depths of the endless seas, to explore another continent far away. However, this fleet had only been out for 3 days before they met a storm. In the end, the 20 wooden ships were all destroyed by the storm, and most of the explorers died, with less than 10 people lucky enough to survive. Since then, the people of Signs had given up on the idea of sailing the seas, even turning the endless seas into a forbidden area. Other than the people who lived by the sea, who could find opportunities to fish, at other times, no one dared to take half a step into the endless seas. Now, Leslie was saying that he wanted to become the overlord of the seas. If he only ruled the coastal areas, it wasn't related to strength on the sea. Rather, it was strength on the coast. This is the old idea of signs. It's already outdated. Leslie looked at with a confused look. It really is strange. This magic boat was clearly developed by you. But now you're telling me that sailing the seas is an extravagant hope? You have no confidence in the things you designed? It is because I personally designed this thing that I know its limitations better than anyone. Said with a serious look. Although I can confidently say that this magic boat's ability to resist storms far surpasses the wooden ships, and it is much safer on the seas, it has only increased the safety from 0 to 1. It isn't an exaggerated increase, and it can't guarantee that you can survive on the seas. According to what you said, isn't this thing not that much better than those wooden ships? Then why did you spend so much effort to create him? Leslie knit his brows, looking a bit disappointed. Leslie revealed a look of disappointment. I thought that with this thing, I could fulfill my dream of sailing the endless seas since I was young. I can guarantee that you will fulfill this dream in the future, but not now. He shook his head and said with a serious look, I'll give you a more practical suggestion. First set your goals, and don't think that you can sail that far right away. Sailing the seas is something that requires experience. You should take it step by step and explore it bit by bit. Leslie looked back at Sue. You think that I'm an idiot? Of course I won't be like those idiots from the Kamla Empire, immediately charging into the endless seas. My original plan was to use this magic boat that you developed to explore the endless seas bit by bit. Could it be that you think that I would charge in like a fool? He couldn't help rolling his eyes. In the end, he was just worried for nothing. All right, then what are you planning to do? He asked. Our company has set the price for this medium-sized magic boat at 800,000 gold coins. I don't think that you can take out that much money right now. 800,000 gold coins? Leslie was shocked. Leslie was surprised. It's that expensive? Of course. He proudly said. This medium-sized magic boat has a capacity of 5,000 tons, and it can carry over 3,000 tons of cargo. This means that if it's filled with cargo, a single trip is equivalent to transporting it over 100 times on land. You think it's expensive? I feel that it's very cheap. It can carry 3,000 tons of cargo at a time. Leslie looked at the medium-sized magic boat that had finished its ceremony and was slowly moving along the blue waves of the endless seas before giving a nod. If it's like this, it is indeed worth that much money. But it seems like my initial estimates were wrong. Actually, what I need the most right now isn't this kind of transport magic boat, but rather something like the small magic speedboats that can carry soldiers for battle. Battle magic boat? He slightly knit his brows as he looked at Leslie in surprise. What? Do you want to become a pirate? Leslie laughed and didn't reply. Looking at the strange smile on his face, he didn't ask anything else. After thinking about it, he said with a nod, "This is actually very simple. You just need to make some necessary modifications and add some weapons and defenses to it. All right, I need a magic boat that is a bit smaller than these medium-sized magic boats and has magic machines on it. For example, a military magic boat, like the small magic trebuchet. It would be best if it could be a bit faster than this. How about it, Sui? Can you do this?" He spread his hands. "I can do this, but with our company's current production capacity, we can't even make one in half a year. If you're in a rush, we definitely can't do it. Moreover, according to your request, although the cost is much lower than the medium-sized magic boats, it wouldn't be less than 400,000 gold coins per ship. Are you certain you want it?" "I'm certain." Leslie gave a certain nod before taking out a gold note and putting it in Su Yi's hand. "This is the first order. I hope you can deliver it as soon as possible." He looked at it and found that this gold note from the Chimera Chamber of Commerce was for 50,000 gold coins. It was just right to use it as a deposit for a small magic boat that cost around 500,000 gold coins. But he still didn't understand what Leslie was planning on doing. Large ships weren't just good to buy. The maintenance costs couldn't be underestimated. If one couldn't obtain enough benefits from it, it wasn't a good thing to have these things. He was developing the magic boats because on one hand, it was to promote the development of the new flyers' magic machines, perfecting the current magic machine industry. On the other hand, he was planning on forming a fleet to meet the urgent transport needs of the new flyer. If Leslie wanted to buy several military ships, if he didn't become a pirate, this thing would be a bottomless pit that he could only throw money into. Even if Leslie hadn't been chased out by Duke Stagg, with the large financial backing of the Stagg family, it would have been hard for him to do this kind of business. Now that his territory had been taken back by the Lampari Kingdom's parliament, it was even more impossible for him to have this kind of financial backing. But Leslie clearly wasn't planning on explaining his plans to Sui, so Sui naturally wouldn't ask about it. Compared to Leslie, who didn't care about this medium-sized magic boat, Sui cared more about it. Being able to smoothly make this medium-sized magic boat meant that the Shinfei merchants had made many breakthroughs in technology. First was the engine technology. Although the magic car and magic boat engines were both wind magic engines and had the same principles, there was a large difference between them. Whether it was in the Academy of Magic or the Magic Machine Development Center, the magic car and magic boat engines were developed separately. Now that this medium-sized magic boat had been made and was smoothly sailing on the sea, it meant that the magic boat engine had made a major breakthrough. It also meant that New Flyer's research on the wind magic engine had reached a new height, which would promote the development of the magic car engine. For example, during this time, with the breakthroughs in the magic boat engine research, New Flyer's research on the magic car engine had also made great progress. In their experiments, they had already made a large transport magic car that could transport over 20 tons. But because of the inherent disadvantage of the wind magic engine, they couldn't make any major breakthroughs in terms of speed. They could only wait for the development of the fire magic engine to make some progress. Other than the engine, the success of this medium-sized magic boat also meant that New Flyer had made another breakthrough in large-scale magic machines. It included the most basic steel welding, the casting of large-scale components, the design of large-scale magic machines, and other aspects. They had all been greatly improved through the process of making this medium-sized magic boat. This medium-sized magic boat had taken close to 2 years since Sui proposed the concept, and now it had been finished. Even on Earth, this was considered very fast, and on these signs that had no foundation at all, this was a miraculous speed. Now that this medium-sized magic boat had been launched, it would be much faster to build the second medium-sized magic boat. When New Flyer built their first ocean transport fleet, they would be able to transport New Flyer's goods to various places on the signs through the endless seas. Take the Kingdom of Ruhr as an example. If New Flyer wanted to transport the various magic machines they produced to the Kingdom of Ruhr, because of the geography of the Principality of Constantine, they could only pass through the Black Rice Wasteland and enter the Lampari Kingdom. After passing through Bana City, they would turn south and enter the Kingdom of Ruhr. Like this, the total distance would be close to 1,000 kilometers. Not mentioning the high cost of transport, because they would have to pay a customs duty to pass through the Lampari Kingdom. The total cost of transport was very high. Once the ocean transport fleet was built, these goods could be directly loaded onto the ships. They would make a small circle to the south of the Principality of Constantine and finally land on the southern coast of the Kingdom of Ruhr. They didn't need to pay any extra fees and adding in the powerful cargo capacity of the magic boat. A single trip was equal to countless trips, which would without a doubt greatly reduce the cost. Moreover, if they transported through the endless seas, they could easily reach the countries further along the coast of the signs. This was very helpful for Sue in spreading the magic machines produced by New Flyer to the signs. But New Flyer's current production capacity wasn't enough. Even if the experiment was successful, it would take several months to build the next medium-sized magic boat. When they could truly build an ocean transport fleet, it would be several years later at the earliest. Thinking of this, Sue couldn't help looking at Leslie with an annoyed look. His schedule was already tight enough, and now this guy had to come and meddle in it. This was simply a waste of time. Chapter 560. Leslie leaving the Stag family. For Sue, it wasn't a serious matter. When he met Leslie a few years ago, he knew that Leslie's ideas didn't fit in with the Stag family's ideas. Leslie had always been against the family's methods. Leslie said that he would go all out to take the family's inheritance because he hoped that after he became the family head, he could gradually change the Stag family's ideas and change the family according to his ideas. Although he had failed now, from a personal point of view, it was a kind of relief. In the end, he was Duke Stag's blood-related son. Even if Duke Stag didn't care about his blood-related son, he couldn't do anything to him just because he inherited the family's bloodline. Leslie said that he wanted to order at least 10 medium-sized magic boats from New Flyer, which required a large amount of money. If it wasn't for Duke Stag's tacit approval, Leslie definitely wouldn't have been able to take away such a large amount of money when he left the family. Perhaps it was like Sue had guessed. Duke Stag expelling Leslie from the family could be considered leaving a path of retreat for the Stag family. So Sue didn't care that much about Leslie being expelled from the family. Whether Leslie wanted to be a pirate or a merchant, as a friend, Sue would support him. Other than this didn't affect Sue and New Flyer that much. However, this matter had a deep impact on the Stag family, and even the entire Lampari Kingdom. The nobles of the Lampuri Kingdom learned through rumors that Duke Stag had expelled his own son because Leslie had opposed his political ideas, objecting to how he dealt with the nobles of the kingdom. Duke Stag didn't even give his own son any face, so naturally he would be even more ruthless to the others. Facts were like this. After the news of Leslie being expelled was spread, Duke Stag moved even faster. In just a month, a large number of nobles in the Lampari Kingdom were condemned, and the level of involvement was getting wider and higher. Not only were there 4 city count city lords stripped of their titles, even one of the ministers of the Lampari Kingdom's military, Duke Festalin, who was known as the Lampuri Eagle in the Lampari Kingdom, was imprisoned for treason. Even a duke that was considered high up among the nobles couldn't escape. It could be seen just how determined and ambitious the conservative nobles of the Lampari Kingdom, represented by Duke Stag, were. However, this time, it inevitably caused a strong backlash in the Lampari Kingdom. In addition to many newspapers criticizing the recent events in the Lampari Kingdom, claiming that this was destabilizing the kingdom, many nobles who were held accountable even directly rebelled. When the royal parliament's police entered the manor of a city count city lord and tried to capture him, they met the fierce resistance of the city count city lord's private guards. Both sides exchanged fire and the police paid the price of over 100 casualties to capture this Count City Lord. The private guards of a noble fighting with the royal parliament's police was without a doubt a very serious matter. In the laws of the kingdom, this could even be considered treason. However, in this situation, this didn't count for anything. This matter was like a fuse that instantly ignited the tense situation in the Lampari kingdom. When capturing the other nobles, the royal parliament's police met more and more fierce resistance, and their casualties increased. After finding that the police couldn't capture them, the parliament even sent out the kingdom's garrison. However, this action created an even stronger backlash. According to the rules set when the Lampari kingdom was founded, the kingdom's garrison was only used to protect the kingdom and couldn't be used to deal with the nobles. Now that Duke Stag had broken this taboo with his power, it naturally attracted the anger of all the nobles in the Lampari kingdom. It was fine for those small nobles who didn't have any power, but the nobles who had real power and were on different sides from Duke Stag knew that they would be targeted by Duke Stag sooner or later, so they all made preparations ahead of time. For a while, the Lampari kingdom was filled with a tense atmosphere. There were even many newspapers that were worried that with the current situation, if they weren't careful, a civil war would break out in the kingdom. ####pong. Eric slapped the table and suddenly stood up, angrily looking at Duke Stag in front of him. It was hard for him to hold back the curse in his throat as he roared with a dark face. "Duke Stag, I trusted you and felt that you could take care of this matter, so I gave everything to you and didn't care about it. But look at it now. What has the kingdom become? What do you want to do? Do you really want to start a civil war?" This was Eric's first time shouting at Duke Stag in front of him. Duke Stag looked at him with a bit of surprise before saying with a faint smile, "Your Majesty, please be assured. Everything is under my control. These people are just weakly moaning right now. It won't affect anything." "This still won't affect anything?" Eric slapped the document on the table in front of him and angrily said, "Kalibo City has even declared independence. Could it be that you think this isn't a problem?" Duke Stag looked over the document and slightly knit his brows before saying with a smile, "Your Majesty, since Count Anabai has already done this, of course we can't let him go. Please be assured, I have already sent the second army of the garrison to Kalibo City. With the strength of the second army, I believe that in less than half a month, you will see Kalibo City return to the embrace of the kingdom." "You've already sent the second army?" Eric looked into Duke Stag's eyes as he coldly asked this. "Yes, Your Majesty." Eric paused and deliberately waited for a bit, but he found that Duke Stag didn't plan on explaining at all, so he couldn't help feeling angry. The Lampari Kingdom's garrison had always been the private army of the Lampari Kingdom's royal family. Since the Lampari Kingdom was founded, it could be considered the royal family's final trump card. However, after Eric took the throne, the kingdom's garrison gradually fell under the control of Duke Stag. Although the most elite First Army was still loyal and only listened to the king's orders, the Second Army was now completely under the command of Duke Stag. Even Eric's orders couldn't reach the Second Army at all. When Lampuri XIII was still alive, he had sent the Third Army of the kingdom's garrison to Seoul City. In name, it was to strengthen the defenses of the northern border, preventing the Sak kingdom from invading. But to Eric back then, because Seoul City's city lord was Count Samo and Samo Count supported 70, Lampuri XIII had ordered the Third Army of the kingdom's garrison to be under the command of Seoul City's city lord, which was without a doubt Lampuri XIII's support for 70 taking the throne. It was because of this that Eric made his decision. Under Duke Stag's enticement, he took a risk and poisoned Lampuri XIII, finally taking the throne with Duke Stag's help. At that time, Eric felt that his actions were very correct. But looking back now, he found that Lampuri XIII sending the Third Army of the kingdom's garrison was a great move. If the Third Army wasn't left in Anvilmar City, it would have already fallen into Duke Stag's hands. If it really became like this, Eric wouldn't have any confidence in front of Duke Stag at all. Thinking of this, Eric's face sunk, and he said with a serious look, "Immediately order them to stop. Without my orders, they aren't allowed to attack Kalibo City at all." Duke Stag was surprised. "Your Majesty, Could it be that you're planning on letting Count Anabai go and watching Kalibo City become independent? Of course not. Eric shook his head. But the way to solve this problem doesn't have to be this rough. Count Anabai chose to do this for a reason. After saying this, Eric looked at Duke Stagg with a gaze of deep meaning. We just need to solve Count Anabai's worries, and I believe we can peacefully solve this matter. There's no need to use force and let the kingdom fall into a shameful civil war. Seeing Eric's serious appearance, Duke Stagg knit his brows. Your Majesty, could it be that you're planning on forgiving a disgraceful fellow who wants to split the kingdom? Eric softly looked at him. I haven't convicted Count Anabai yet, but there are no buts. Eric cut Duke Stagg off without any politeness. Duke Stagg raised a brow and looked at Eric before lowering his head. Yes, Your Majesty, I will go and give your orders to the Second Army of the garrison. After silently waiting for a bit and seeing that Eric didn't have any more orders, Duke Stagg left. Seeing the door close, Eric felt his body turn soft as he slumped down in his chair. His hands unconsciously clenched, but he found that his hands didn't have any strength. His entire body felt weak, and he was covered in cold sweat, with his palms covered in sweat. This was his first time acting this tough in front of Duke Stagg. Although he was very nervous and felt like he had just fought a big battle, he felt strangely refreshed. Lying in the chair and looking at the ceiling in a daze for a while, Eric finally let out a long sigh. He had been on the throne for over a year, but only today did he feel like a king. Chapter 561. As for Eric's feelings, he would never be able to understand. Since the establishment of the New Flyer, he had great prestige in the Chamber of Commerce and could be said to mean what he said. And when he obtained this territory from Lord Wine and officially became the Lord of the Principality of Constantine, he obtained the status of a king in this territory. Of course, he wasn't like Eric, who was just an empty shell of a king. Because of the special situation in the Principality of Constantine, he now had this territory and could plan it as he wished. He didn't have to worry about anyone interfering with him or even chasing him away. At least in the Principality of Constantine, there wasn't a single lord that was blind enough to provoke him. Even all the lords in the Principality of Constantine, including Duke Stantine, were eager to curry favor with and think of ways to establish a good relationship with him and the New Flyer. It was for no other reason than to be able to buy suitable military magic machines from the New Flyer. The war between Lord Wine and Count Fran lasted for over 4 months before Lord Wine obtained a complete victory. He snatched all of Fran Count's territory and declared the end. In the Principality of Constantine, Lord Wine and Count Fran weren't considered weak and didn't fight frequently. This was because both sides were considered vassals in the Principality of Constantine. Whether it was territory, population, or military strength, they were similar. Even if there was a conflict, it would at most be resolved in a small area. It was very rare for one side to be completely wiped out like this. Originally, all the lords in the Principality of Constantine thought that Lord Wine and Count Fran would fight in the same way. They didn't expect that in the first 2 months, it would be a normal conflict. But in the 3rd month, the strength of Wine's personal guards would suddenly increase, and Fran Count wouldn't be able to resist at all. In the end, in less than 2 months, Lord Wine completely broke through, and even Fran Count was defeated and killed. This result greatly exceeded everyone's expectations. After many inquiries, the lords in the Principality of Constantine finally knew the reason why Lord Wine's subordinates were so fierce. It was because Lord Wine had purchased a large number of military magic machines from New Flyer. Lord Wine's personal guards weren't famous for their fighting strength in the Principality of Constantine, but after being equipped with various military magic machines produced by New Flyer, their fighting strength increased sharply. They completely defeated Fran Count's personal guards, which was enough to show the power of the military magic machines. At the same time, in the south of the Principality of Constantine, Viscount Anklo, who was also equipped with military magic weapons from New Flyer, was also invincible. He had defeated several lords in the Principality of Constantine and now occupied a huge territory of more than 3,000 square kilometers. It was even larger than Su Yi's private territory. Viscount Anklo's subordinates were also equipped with the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's military magic machines, which was why they had such strong battle strength. Then with the change in battle strength of Lord Wine's personal guards, it wasn't hard to come to a conclusion. The simplest and most direct way to increase the fighting strength of his subordinates was to equip them with military magic machines produced by New Flyer. So before Lord Wine had completely defeated Count Fran, countless lords in the Principality of Constantine sent people to contact New Flyer. They wanted to buy various military magic machines from New Flyer. So whether Su Yi was willing or not, he had become an arms dealer like he had expected before. But he wouldn't sell to just anyone. When he gave instructions to Kennard, he clearly stated that he couldn't sell military magic machines to the lords of the Principality of Constantine, who were currently in direct conflict with Lord Wine and Anklo. As for the specifics of the transaction, he didn't participate in it at all. After sending Leslie away, he spent most of his time developing the magic boat. At the same time, he spent quite a bit of time studying magic with Great Magician Camilla. According to Great Magician Camilla's evaluation of him, he was already at the threshold of becoming a great magician. As long as he worked harder and deepened his understanding of magic, he could break through at any time and become a great magician. The difference between a great magician and a normal magician was too big. Even if Su Yi wasn't that interested in magic, he had to treat this matter seriously. It was a good thing that he had resources that most of the magicians in the signs couldn't compare to. Not only did he have Great Magician Camilla, who was already a 5th grade Great Magician, to teach him, he could also ask Great Magician Tolucci for advice. Other than this, whether it was the Night Song tribe's Elder Alicia or the Moon Shadow tribe's Elder Lysania, they both had magic power that surpassed human great magicians. Moreover, the two of them were elves, so their understanding of magic far surpassed that of humans. There was no doubt that they would be of great help to Su Yi in this aspect. Because of their cooperation with the New Flyer, the Night Song tribe was filled with vitality. Especially since the birth rate of the tribe was several times higher than before, even increasing the tribe's population for 3 years in a row. Elder Alicia was now even more approving of their cooperation with the New Flyer, or rather with Su Yi. But because Su Yi was a human, she was always worried that Su Yi would be limited by a human's lifespan and would die soon. Therefore, she was very concerned that Su Yi could become a great magician and extend his lifespan. Su Yi had always been unwilling before because he didn't have enough time to focus on studying magic. Elder Alicia also didn't have any good methods. Now that Su Yi was willing to focus on studying magic, Elder Alicia was even more concerned than Great Magician Camilla. She also convinced Elder Lysania to give Su Yi special tutoring. Only this special tutoring method made Su Yi feel very awkward. I say, the two elders, there's no need to take off all of your clothes, right? Su Yi covered his lower body that only had his underwear left. His face was slightly red as he spoke with an awkward expression. This was Su Yi's bedroom in the manor on the cliff of the Shinfei farm in the Principality of Constantine. Right now, there was only Su Yi, Elder Alicia, and Elder Lysania in the room. Of course, you have to take off all of your clothes. If you don't take off all of your clothes, how will we know the condition of your bones and magic conductors? Elder Lysania looked at Su Yi in confusion. But this would be a bit disrespectful to you, Su Yi said in an awkward voice. Disrespectful? The two elders were stunned. Elder Alicia thought about it before shaking her head with a smile. Chairman Su, you're thinking too much. You're a human, and we're elves. We're even different species. You don't have to be embarrassed. Besides, even if you look at it from the perspective of humans, we're already hundreds of years old. What's there to be embarrassed about in front of us? Elder Lysania understood what Su Yi meant. She frowned slightly and shook her head. Don't use your humans' unnecessary sense of shame to measure us elves. We're not like you humans who are filled with filthy thoughts. Elder Lysania then glanced at Su Yi's lower body. Don't tell me that Chairman Su, you're also lusting after us two old elven women? You humans, to be precise, human males are really an incredible species. Su Yi couldn't help but roll his eyes. This was a normal human desire, okay? The two elders kept saying that they were old women, but no matter how one looked at them, they looked no different from human girls in their early 20s. How could one associate them with being hundreds of years old? Moreover, as elven elders, not only did they possess the usual beauty and elegance of elven women, they also possessed nobility, wisdom, and a strong sense of mystery that ordinary elven women did not possess. In fact, they were even more attractive than ordinary elven women. As for different races, the elves weren't the beast men. For humans, the elves were the rulers of this continent, so humans had always considered the elves as their goal. In the days after the end of the racial war, the elves had been living in seclusion outside the human world because many humans were proud to have an elven slave. This led to humans wantonly capturing elves, forcing the elves to live in seclusion. All right, Chairman Su, don't waste any more time. Quickly take it off. Seeing that Su Yi was still hesitating, Elder Lysania urged him. Because Elder Lucia had been in contact with Su Yi for a long time, and because she had worked with Su Yi for a long time, she respected him and didn't urge him. But she still looked at Su Yi, and the urge in her eyes was very clear. Seeing that the two of them didn't have any intentions of compromising and thinking that he would be chased back by great magician Camilla if he went out, Su Yi could only give a helpless sigh. He took off the final piece of cloth and revealed a heroic appearance, standing there like he was facing death. Elder Lucia and Elder Lysania's eyes swept over Su Yi from head to toe, carefully looking over him several times. Then the two of them revealed looks of joy at the same time as they looked at each other and nodded. Very good, Chairman Su. Your body is very good. As long as there isn't a problem with your magic power conduction line, I think you should be able to learn to use the magic power meditation method unique to us elves. This will help you become a great magician as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.